All right. Well, we are back, huh? We're back at the 9 Club Stop and Chat. Today we have a very special returning guest. Mr. Paul Schmitt, a.k.a. The Professor, is back with us.
Glad to be here.
How
We're
are
in the
you?
studio.
Thank God.
Right?
Thank God.
Not behind a Zoom cam. What's up with that?
We were waiting.
I thought you guys were going to zoom into my workshop, and then you're like, no, you get to come to Venice.
Which we would love to do still. We could zoom into
We
your...
want to just
into your-
come to your wood shop.
You want to come down to Tijuana? Come to the real factory?
Down.
I would
All the way
love
down.
that.
That would be a treat.
Got your passport? Let's go.
Do we need a vaccination passport now?
The border doesn't really care. You just cross the border.
How far across the border is it?
7 miles.
Oh,
that's not bad.
Not far at all.
Nice.
That's not bad. So you're still going down there
I've been going down a lot.
A lot.
Been working on fixing machines and process and procedure. Really, when COVID kicked in, obviously there were in all kinds of challenges, right?
Sure.
As a factory, it was like, well, how do we operate through this? Had to punk it
Right.
big time. The government said, hey, just send everybody home and pay them.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I'll be out of business in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, customers were canceling orders or saying, hold off on that. And some are like, gimme. Mm-hmm. And, at the end, we sent everybody that was 60 years and older home, that had a pre-existing health condition home.
Mm-hmm.
And then we took everybody else and said, hey, guys, we'll pay you for a week. You just got to work 2 days.
Oh.
And we split them into shifts, sent the office home. So we had 15 people in the building instead of 42.
Okay. Yeah.
And we just then we worked into 3 days, then we worked into 4 days.
Right.
The office is actually just going back to regular hours this next week.
Perfect.
Awesome.
The last employee got vaccinated, got their first vaccination this past week. So
Okay.
we're
Good.
close to that.
Nice.
Only down there, second shots are like 8 weeks or something.
Okay. It's amazing, man. Because listen, I want to get to how you're doing and everything. Because last time you were here, it was 2019. Was that right after your surgery? Like, did you break your?
I broke my femur in January of that year.
January, February, March, April.
So pretty much by December, I was skating a little and
Okay.
still,
I think you still had a
trying
brace
to
when
get
you were
back.
here.
I was still hobbling around.
So we'll get into that in a minute because since we're on the boards and the COVID stuff, because there was like a big board shortage, right? We were talking about it here, like people couldn't get boards, and the smaller companies, like they could, skate shops were taking anything that they could
Anything
get.
they get. You got to realize that there was no inventory in skateboarding because the slow time of year is always the first quarter of the year. Mm-hmm. Everybody had a really reserved viewpoint. Hey, we made this really cool graphic. And I go, well, why you only ordering 170? Well, we only pre-booked 180 of them. So nobody had inventory. Nobody would build anything. They had enough confidence to create a graphic and do it, but not enough confidence to say, hey, we'll roll the dice on an extra 100 boards or whatever quantity it was. So we were in that situation, and then COVID hit, and it rocked the world's supply chain.
Wood, just wood in general. It's still expensive at Home Depot.
Wood's gone
and
up
stuff.
as a whole.
Yeah.
You got to realize that part of wood is demand, part of it is freight.
Right.
Freight and logistics costs have gone through the roof.
Yep.
And I don't think that's going to change.
And they slowed down big time.
Yeah.
Just having things delivered on time.
Yeah, well, the reality is you go to the store and you're like, hey, at Home Depot, I've been trying to buy some spray adhesive in a can. I've been looking for it for 3 months. Home Depot, Lowe's, they don't have it.
Amazon?
I haven't checked Amazon.
We got some here with some spray. We'll give it to you. We have some spray adhesive. We stocked up.
Just not my habit.
How do you think that these foam things are being held to the wall, man?
There
This
you
little
go.
spray adhesive. Scotch 3M, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's the good stuff. It's 3M.
3M. It's anytime somebody says 3M, I'm gonna buy it, whether I need it or not, just because it's 3M. It's like great branding.
Yeah,
They
they
make
sell
great
that
products.
too as well.
Yeah, but it's more than branding. It's substance, right?
There you go. There
They
you
make
go.
products of substance.
Right.
So the woods. How is the supply chain now?
Well, the supply chain hasn't been a problem for me the whole time.
Oh,
To be clear, it's like the way you plan for wood and wood coming out of the forest.
Yeah.
It's looking out 6 months. It's looking out a year.
okay.
To get a tree all the way through the process, right?
Right.
And then you don't know if it's going to be a rainy month or a dry month, and if that's going to affect getting something on the forest. So the guys that do the veneer, they have the planning for that.
Oh,
Okay?
the veneerers have the planning.
Right. The veneers have the planning cycle for that, but we comply to their plan,
Gotcha.
So trees didn't stop growing with COVID. They're still growing.
Okay.
There's a whole other problem, though. The top part of a tree used to always go to newspapers and magazines. Biggest
Interesting.
user of paper, right? pretty crazy. We ran out of toilet paper at the start of COVID. We don't even need newspapers and magazines anymore. Okay, because the world's supply chain, like everything is so interdependent of each other, and people don't realize how complicated it is.
I didn't even realize that the tops of the trees were made. The bottoms of the trees is the wood, the lumber, and then the tops of the trees is more of the paper.
The pulp.
Yeah, I never took the time to think about
or
that.
fuel.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was a biofuel plant in Wisconsin that was using a lot of the tops of the trees. That gas prices went down so low, they shut the plant down. And it wasn't a prehistoric plant. It was something built in the last 20 years.
Do you mean like tops of the trees, like leaves and branches? And
Branches,
stuff? Okay.
You know where you put the little star on the top of the tree?
There's no BTUs in
There's
the
not enough
leaves.
nanotubes up there.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get into the nanotubes, Raj. Trust me. Everybody wants to know, revisit the nanotubes.
That was pretty crazy because there's a new context to have discussions with people all the time now.
The nanotubes?
Nanotubes.
I don't know.
It wasn't in the vocabulary before.
There's
Nine
always
Club.
something from one episode that just sticks out, right? A lot of things stuck out from your episode, but the nanotubes got
big thing.
people.
Nanotubes,
It's still,
huh?
we still say nanotubes all the time.
That vertical laminate, you need that.
In the nanotubes. But yeah, thanks for coming back, Paul. This is great because your episode did extremely well. Just the learning the schematics and the what goes into skateboards, I think was very fascinating and captivated people because a lot of people, probably in my era and your era, Dubs, like we didn't think about our boards as tools, and we just slapped. Oh, that's a good shape.
Yeah.
Two fingers are flat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that your episode really spoke to a lot of people.
But
you
I
know,
think so
which is
much of
rad.
it spoke because of the questions, the interaction, the surprise, that, right? Because I could have stood in front of a camera and said all that,
True.
and nobody would have listened to it for 4 hours.
Yeah, I think your
right.
episode actually made people like rethink their whole setup.
For
Yeah.
sure.
A lot of people.
Oh, a lot of people have told me that very clearly, and they're like, "Thanks for this." Or like,
I now ride like smaller trucks so I can flip my board better or whatever else.
Right.
Yeah.
I would love to hear him and Jamie Foy talk about boards.
I was talking to him before the show. There are those skaters that are really in tune and really selective with their setups, and like Jamie Foy's one of them. Ashad, and there's a couple people, that we have on the show. And I always find it fascinating, even the younger generation, they're in tune.
Yes, definitely.
We brought our boards here for you to examine them, but later in the show we'll examine
I'll share
them.
some perspective. You could share what you think explain your board to me from your perspective,
Right.
And then I'll explain it to you from my perspective.
Okay.
And then we can compare them in between what the variables are.
Just don't tear mine apart. I got this board coming out soon. Okay, I need to sell this thing.
There's no right or wrong though. It's skateboarding. There is no right. There is no wrong. Yeah.
I love that, and you're right. It's all individual.
That's true.
So Nano Tubes was a big takeaway from your episode. Was there anything else that people really kind of like took from it that
Just
you?
the science of a skateboard. Like they just didn't think of it that way. Or a lot of times you learn something or see something and it just doesn't resonate. It resonated, and I feel the resonating was the interaction with you guys and the questions and the surprise and that part of it, because they watch the show, they see you, they understand you and your perspective, right?
Right.
They may or may understand me, but it might have been like from a Fuel TV thing 12 years ago, or or from Camp Woodward show 3 years ago, or Schmitt Stops video, Let's Go Skate back in 1986, Depends where they're at, right?
What about if Schmitt Stops Let's Go Skate again in 2021? Let's go.
Revamp that, huh?
Yeah. Again.
Yeah.
But that's amazing though, because I took away a lot from that episode, and we were just commenting on it before the show. It's got like a good amount of views, and like when we start hearing it from our fans, because the guest is one thing, they probably hear it all the time, and we get some feedback too. But man, when we start getting the DMs of like, man, thank you so much for having the professor on, and oh my God, this and that, like it's a great feeling.
It's also great to see an episode that's like 4 hours long do really, really well.
Yes.
For us, like,
and just informative the whole time.
Well, it blew me away the amount of people like, oh, I've watched it 3 times now. I'm like, what? And like, well, I'm a welder and I just listen to stuff when I work. And
so
it's such a different
That's
perspective on skating almost.
Oh my God.
We have the skaters on, they tell their story about how they did their thing, and you did your thing, but you come from a whole different perspective.
But it also, my thing is 40 years of that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not I've been pro for 3 years or 5 or 20.
Yeah, and most skaters are stuck on like what they ride. Like, all right, this works for me. I'm never going to change. And then you might have just actually like, oh, well, if my flip tricks do kind of suck if I just like change my trucks, you know, or change my wheels.
Paul, let me tell you something, dude. This guy, Roger, oh my God. I have never seen anybody, right? It is curb skating. Listen, this guy, I walk in the door sometimes and he's like, dude, check this out, man. I was having trouble with the nose slide popovers. So I took out like 2 plies in the middle of the nose. He's doing all this crazy shit with his board. He's got like 800. What's the thickest grit out there?
The coarse grit, normal grip tape is 80 grit.
80 grit.
So something that's coarser might be 70 or 60. Like the downhill guys use that really coarse 60 stuff.
That's what I'm using right
now.
So
Raj uses 0.005 grit on his board. So these things are like mountains.
I have a rock on my board.
That's a lot of little pebbles.
But he's constantly changing.
He has
his
4
setups.
boards down here.
Well, I change things for like if I want to for right now, like the board I'm riding right now, like I want to do a really long frontside nose slide pop over on the curb.
Sure.
So like I've been like tinkering with my board, like drilled the nose back a little bit, threw on the grittier grip tape on the nose.
Yeah.
And then like I was getting like a lot of friction while like nose sliding. I wasn't sliding as far as I wanted to. So I basically sanded out a hole in the center of my nose.
Reduced your surface tension.
Exactly. And I just went and now I slide further.
Right.
Amazing.
How about a little more wax? How about Paul? What is going on here?
Like imagine him trying
how about a little bit less stress and I want to just land my trick?
Imagine him like trying it and then looking at his board and just picking it up and taking it back home and just.
That's pretty much what I did. That's what I did.
Tinkers with it a little bit.
Not
let's
figure this one out. Let's just.
And it worked though.
But I do that with guys all the time. I had Dominic Walker in my workshop yesterday, and we went over a board I made a couple weeks ago for him, and he wasn't liking it, and he ollied and nollied around, and then I modified it, and he's like, how the hell did you make the board that sucked yesterday work great today?
How did you modify it? Yeah. Like, what were the steps?
Reduce the length of the nose and the tail, which made the degree became higher, and it took longer. It took longer to hit.
Same wheelbase.
In this case, same wheelbase. Yeah, later on we changed that too. So, but by the time we're done, the board's been hacked up, right? But you learned something from it. But because you know what the board rides like you rode yesterday, whether you loved it or not. And then when you feel the change in it, then you're like, oh, this can be different. Then it's like, it's the buy into it, but you buy into it because you can hear it. You can hear the snap. Okay, the ollie's right. If you're a boxer and you're punching people, right?
Yeah.
You want to punch literally right there.
That's your extension.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to punch right here.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like this. And
you want to get that
right there.
That snap.
So an ollie is
spot.
that same timing. It's just like a boxer.
Yeah.
Right?
When I hit people, Paul, I right there, I snap it right there. Bah!
And they're like, what was that?
I've never been in a fight in my life, Paul. Okay, let's just be honest.
How are you modifying the board? Like, are you like? What do you mean take off nose and tail? Like, do you?
So literally, I sanded the nose and tail
Oh.
down in length.
Okay.
So I reduced the length, and therefore the angle of the board became steeper
Okay.
because he felt that it was too soft. It wasn't reacting right. Like it's hitting too soon. So he was hitting here, right? And I made him hit there, and then he was like, "Oh, this is fabulous."
Wow.
How many millimeters are we taking down on the?
In that case, I took 1/8 off the tail, and I took 1/4 off the nose.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah.
An eighth
But
of
the
an
board was
inch.
long anyway. So
Yeah.
it's part of the problem in a sense is for whatever reason, boards have gotten so long and then you got all this mass you got to swing around with, you carry around with, but then people are like, well, my board's got to be narrow. Or if it's narrow, why is it long?
Right.
Like it's scale.
Is there any time like you get an order for boards and you have to make these shapes and you look at the shape and you're like, what the hell are these people doing? Man, I should talk to them. They're doing it all wrong.
I don't believe there's a wrong.
There's no wrong.
No.
You've never looked at anyone's
There's a shape
board?
for somebody out there.
Have you looked at someone's board and you're just like, that's not right for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the not right for you is ollie and manual around and watch your body mannerism, then change it and see the change in body mannerism, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that change, and then, you know, if 5 bangers come right after that, then you know you're in the right zone.
I like that.
I literally don't ask him to do anything but ollie and mangle.
Oh, you're not even watching flipping the board, 360
Well, no,
flips?
there's
or-
something about that.
Oh, okay.
So shortening his tail yesterday meant that he had enough scoop to get his tail to do what he wanted.
Right.
You know? But when it
right.
hits too soon, it's like before the scoop, right?
Yeah.
The scoop wants to happen right there.
Yeah.
But it's trying to scoop here. It's too early. I'm not in the right place.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating, Jeron?
Makes
Could you-
sense.
I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna go back and watch that episode because now
dude,
I'm
that's
intrigued.
it's
wild.
amazing.
oh, yeah. To start it on your way home, man.
Yeah.
To pop it on the whole podcast. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
So just that little quarter, would you say quarter of an inch? No.
Eighth of an inch.
Eighth of
Yeah.
an inch.
Tail.
Yeah.
And 3/4 on the.
You could change the degree by like 0.3 with an eighth of an inch. So you could go from 34 to 34.3, and that might put you in the zone. Imagine if you have like a meter, right? And the meter's going up. This is your current setup.
Yeah.
However it is, there's no right or wrong. It's what you rode yesterday. It's what you know.
Yeah.
Well, if we take it this way, we'll help your power. If we take it this way, we'll help your finesse. If you're going to go skate a mani pad tomorrow, grab the board with the finesse, right? If you're trying to get up on high hubba tomorrow, take the one with the power, right? If you're going downhill for a driveway gap, take the one with the finesse because you don't need to go up. You're going out,
Right.
right?
But
So tight.
I
man.
know.
love
It's
it.
insane. I'm just thinking to myself,
Makes
like,
total sense.
but I'm not, I don't want a quiver of boards. So
Right.
what would you,
So that's the balance.
Right.
The challenge is that you can make something work better for one thing, but it may take away somewhere else. So then you got to come back and go, where's this place where it fits right?
Yeah, you need to find the right tool for you.
well, that's what I was saying to him before
you
the
don't,
show.
You don't have to be like, I have to have a quiver, but for some people, that's what they want.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, Danny Way rides a different board in the street than he does on the vert, than he does on
Oh,
the Mega.
sure. I ride a different board on the curbs than I do if I was going to go skate some flat ground to the streets.
Right.
You know,
So it makes sense on how you just explained that.
it's crazy. Yeah, but it could even come down to the trucks. It could even come down to the tightness and looseness of somebody's trucks as well, right?
Oh, totally. And your bushings. I was
Bushings.
skating Linda Vista last Sunday with this guy, and he was so fluid and loose. I'm like, does he not even have bushings? He was not even aware. We flipped his board over, and his back bushing was like blown apart. And literally, his truck was almost doing this. But his fluidity in the bowl, I was like, I want to loosen my trucks up. Put softer bushings on my board.
Right. Was this day one?
Yeah,
No.
basically. That's what I was gonna say that. Yeah.
So what else has been going on? I mean, the wood shop's good. Everything's good. I mean, your health, your body, the pelvis. Was it pelvis or femur? Femur.
Femur. So
Femur's
I had a
good.
two-piece femur. I hit a tree at the top of Mount Baldy.
That's what it was.
And when I rolled over, my leg went like this. I'm like, oh, that's a new feeling. I never felt that one before. I remember when I blew my MCL out years ago and it did this. And I was like, oh, that's a feeling I never felt before.
God, I don't want to feel
But
that.
don't worry, the tree at the top of Mount Baldy is totally good.
Totally good. Right.
Oh, that's
You
good
didn't
to
cut
know.
it down, make it into a skateboard?
It was a fur. I don't think it's very good.
Going up with his axe. Okay, I'm gonna get that tree.
Take that tree down.
Taking you with me.
That tree attacked me.
Might have
man.
been karma. I'm not sure.
I'm gonna send the top of this tree to the paper mill, man. But everything's good though. Every health and
I can't complain.
Amazing.
I mean, in the fall, the doctor had told me with my knee to get it stronger, they're like, hey, you're going to have a knee joint replacement. How much cartilage left in there, you know? And I was like, I don't want to go there. And I just got
Right.
serious about my body and started intermittent fasting. So I only eat from noon till 8.
noon till 8.
And I won't eat anything in the morning. I'll drink water all morning.
Was that hard for you to get used to at first?
Yeah, but because breakfast is my favorite meal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have
So
breakfast at
so
noon
that,
now.
So that was hard. Sometimes.
Pancakes?
Sometimes on the weekends.
I did the same thing. I felt it was hard to stop eating at nighttime.
Well, that's what I found as well. But for some reason, for me, I'm a process person, right? So it's like I just followed the process, and literally right away I started to shed 10 pounds a month for like 4 months.
Damn.
How crazy
And then
is
since
that?
awesome.
then it's been a couple pounds a month, and it's much slower now.
How does the knee feel now?
Well, fabulous, because it used to be I'd drive my car for an hour and I'd get out of my car and I would wince because it's going to hurt, right? And I equated that to age, but I knew I was overweight as well, right? But I really thought it was age, and I'm 57.
Okay.
And even now I get out of the car and wince because my mind is conditioned to wince, but my body doesn't hurt. I just jump out of the car and I'm great. I got to be in the car for 5 hours to have it hurt.
So no knee replacement needed.
Not yet. Well, it's weak, and I'm trying to get it stronger.
Okay.
There you go.
So like a couple weeks ago, I visited the doctor, and I'm like, hey, what about those injections you talked about last year? It's like, oh, with your weight loss, you don't need the injections. They were for inflammation, and the inflammation was really from your body being overweight and having this much stress on your joints.
Right.
You're not going to see Danny Way's stem cell doctor?
Well, Danny and I had discussions about that because he's like, I don't have cartilage, and he's going through that
Yeah,
right
right
now.
now.
Dude, I
Yeah.
saw those
Real
photos.
time.
It looks
Insane.
insane.
Yeah, him and
dude.
Stevo, both.
Yeah, that's
Intense.
intense. I'm really curious to hear how it goes. He gave me the inside on it all, and we had some discussions. So I've had discussions with a few skaters. When I broke my femur, after a while, the screws started to come out. So,
On their own.
well, the amount of skaters that have had the screws come out of the left-hand side of their body.
What, they're just unscrewing out of their
Yeah,
knee?
there's a bump in the knee, but people ankles, okay.
And then eventually it breaks the
I
skin.
thought it fuses to the bones, no?
No.
Okay.
No,
start
but
backing away
basically
out.
what happens is, in my case, the screws were in there, and the breakage, the bone had healed around it, right?
Okay.
But the screws were holding the load, and the bone wasn't growing in the middle. Okay, so it wasn't talking here. So the physical therapist and the doctor's like, well, you got to get more active, right? Your body's not talking, and well, really it was that. So when I got more active, the screws worked out because the biomechanical engineer made these really cool titanium screws that are coarse thread and probably lots of money, right? They're all right-handed threaded for the right-hand side of the body and the left-hand side of the body.
What?
Now, if you ever change the bicycle pedal,
Yeah.
if the bicycle pedals were all right-handed thread, they come
They
off.
pop off.
Yeah.
Same
Right?
thing.
So the same thing, because your body's moving forward majority of its time, let's say at least 95%, right? If not 99.95, right?
Why haven't they corrected this?
I don't
right.
know.
Right?
It just blows me
These
away.
screws are coming out. Well, you got to put the opposite thread.
But I mean, like, if it was the
Makes
other way,
sense.
they would get tighter and probably really could fuck up your bones.
Well, at the other side is tighter. So
Right, think
mine
about
was
that.
the fact that
I'd rather have them tighter.
the lobe was on the screws. So when they took the screws out,
Yeah.
the joint closed and my body started to talk through the middle of the bone.
yeah.
And then it started to heal. So I literally had like a 3-month delay or 4-month by the time they took the screws
Because you had a
out.
screw in there, yeah.
And it was crazy from that context of how that happened. But it's even crazier if the biomechanical engineers don't got this figured out, right? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
as a person who deals with mechanics all the time and machines and process, my mind goes back to being a kid with a bicycle pedal, going which way, righty tighty, lefty loosey, and the fact of when I figured that out. So when I have something wrong, I always go 180 degrees from where I'm at.
Sure.
And then if I close the gap, I'll find the answer.
It's almost like they need a biodegradable rivet. They would
yeah.
slowly dissolve away,
Yeah.
and the bone can take over.
Yeah, well, in this case, because the bone, literally the screws are shiny in the middle because the titanium rod was hitting them.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the screws go through the rod, it's actually a hollow hole. So it's doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the reality of trying to have a threaded hole in the alignment and biting the coarseness needed for the bone versus the coarseness needed for metal.
Now it's just bouncing back and forth
You're
in
basically
that
like
hole.
Pinocchio leg.
So it took a long time to get past that.
Screws are out though.
The bottom screws are. Top ones will stay in there.
Okay.
The titanium rod will stay in there.
Okay.
But at the point where there was a chip in the back that wasn't fusing, and then they, did different therapies and different things,
Gotcha.
and then sort of probably about the time I did the 9 Club episode, then they were like, okay, we're gonna be okay now. Where before they were like, oh, we'll just take the rod out and put a new one in, and I'm like, a bigger one. I'm like, no, you already went through that knee twice now. It's had 2 surgeries in life prior to this. Which comes back to doctors, biomechanical engineers. So when I'm in the hospital and they're telling me what they're going to do, like, you're going to stand on it tomorrow. We're going to put a rod in between your knee and your hip. And I go, oh, that sounds like a pretty good trade-off. I was thinking I was going to be in traction. Like, how am I going to function?
Right.
And the reality is that the doctor, I told her, look at the staples. That knee's it's the weakest part of my body is that knee. So I wake up after surgery. Everything went well. We went through your knee. I'm like, why'd you go through my knee? I told you it was the weakest part of my body. Well, we didn't want to damage a perfectly good hip. It's like, oh, I would have taken a third hit to my hip any day to keep a third of my knee.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
yeah. Especially after you told them.
And they
You're like,
couldn't
yeah.
see that. And the surgery only cost $40,000. They didn't even do a good enough job to make the gap close. So the screws had to work themselves out to get the next doctor to fix it, right?
I love it. He's just going to do his next surgery himself.
Yeah.
Like, hey, give me some Novocaine, man.
I got this.
I doubt that, but I'm definitely a little bit of a control type person. Like even when I hurt myself at the top of Mount Baldy, they're like trying to pick me. I'm like, no, strap my legs together. This is like, give me anything, strap them together. Some guy's trying to put a piece of cardboard around my leg. I'm like, that cardboard's not going to do anything. You got to strap my legs together. You know?
That's pretty funny though.
Yeah, well, the ski patrol guys are doing their best, but they're basically enthusiasts on the hill, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, with
just happy
a
to be
medical
there.
training and whatever experience they have, you know. So thank God they had something to share me with, right? I didn't freeze on the hill.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
There you
thank
go.
you guys.
Yeah, but you know,
Mount Baldy Ski Patrol.
there you go. Yeah, get rid of that cardboard. Get something a little stiffer.
Come on now.
You know what I'm saying? But you know your own body. We all know our own bodies better than anybody. You know, so.
Well,
Very
a lot
important.
of times I think it is with professionals. I've always had the viewpoint of like accountants and lawyers and people like that. I take the perspective and then I make my judgment from there. I don't blindly follow the perspective.
Right.
And the same thing of a doctor. But the doctor, in a sense, in this case, I said what I needed and they said, oh, we're going to put you to sleep. We're going to do what we want.
Right.
You know?
Basically.
And then if it would all come out perfect, I wouldn't have had anything to complain about, right?
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
But the reality is that I'm not a doctor. I can't fix myself in that context, you know?
Well, you know, you do what you can, man. I'm glad that you're well, though. I mean, you just did what a 200-mile skate the other day, like skate day. It's like
It was only 20.
what's this guy doing?
200 miles.
200 miles.
2022.
He stopped a little shy of San Francisco. It was like,
It was only 20.
It was all
miles.
downhill.
Yeah.
a lot. That's far,
Yeah,
Paul.
20
That's very
That's
far.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the first 9.5 miles I ride on Sundays anyways. There's
Okay.
a bike path by Cook's Corner in Orange County, and you come downhill 9.5 miles on a bike path. It's about 1,100-foot elevation.
So you're going downhill that first 9.5
But the next 10.5 miles was up and down hills.
Oh, my God.
Jeez.
And
You have to make
a
up
bunch
for
of
it.
pushing. And then it wasn't necessarily on a bike path. It was a sidewalk. It was a bike trail on the side of a street with people going 60 miles an hour.
Oh.
Me like pumping in the spot and some guy like coming by with his car, pump it out.
Yeah.
I know you're out there, right?
Right.
Was it just you and Don Brown that did
Yeah,
that?
just me and Don.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
wow.
Amazing.
God damn.
Don had talked about a couple years ago. Don, for Go Skateboarding Today, skated from Costa Mesa, where we live, to Dana Point, 26 miles. And PCH is not friendly. That's like no bike trail
Yeah, it's
with
sketchy.
traffic for 26 miles, right?
Sketchy.
And that's up and down a lot too.
Up and down a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like any route of PCH is like a dangerous highway. You know,
I
it
would agree.
spans throughout this whole, but it's just so many things, you
Yeah.
know, these people, man. But I'm so glad that you're doing good. And there's nothing to sneeze about though. 20 miles. I mean, I'm bummed when I have to drive 20 miles. let
Yeah, well,
alone skate.
I was surprised. I accepted the fact going into it that I might be Uber in 5
Yeah,
miles. Or something, right? Like
There
that
you
might
go.
be happening, you know. And
Right.
it's like to get to the beach with like victory, you're like boards in the sand. You know,
How
we
long
made
did it
right.
take?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how long did it take?
I think in 3 hours.
Really?
Not bad at all.
That's not bad.
3.5. Well, the normal one we do like in an hour and 15 or something. You know, the first 9.5, but
Yeah.
that's more downhill. The bottoms got up and down.
Jeez. The guy who free soloed Half Dome,
Yosemite?
El Capitan. It's like
Capitan.
4 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Climbed all the way up 4 hours.
To believing your skills and your body enough with that down there.
Yeah.
3,000 foot drop. It's crazy.
Yeah, you
I
see
don't-
the documentaries on that stuff, and it's intense.
I love it,
Yeah,
man.
it's
I'm well into the rock climbing stuff right now. I don't do it myself, but I'm fascinated by the.
You don't do it yourself?
Hell no.
No?
I'm fascinated by.
Chris has that rock climbing mindset, but not the body.
I would love
I
to
don't
see
know.
you
I got
do
the
it.
body, I
Yeah.
think. But these people, when they're climbing, they're so calculated, but then also they look so light and they look
Yeah.
so free, but they're on the side of a rock.
It's not like they got handholds like the gym, you know.
These
Handholds,
are.
whatever Mother
Yeah.
Nature left them. But
Yeah.
that's like skating, right? You're out street skating, you're dealing with the environment. What is it?
Exactly.
What is it? Adapt.
true.
Yep.
Adapt.
Wax it up, drill a hole in your nose, whatever you need to do.
There you
Make it
go.
work. Yeah, make it work.
Whatever
for
works,
yourself.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
So last time we talked, we got into a lot of board stuff. I'd love to get into some more of that board, analyzation. And like we were talking about, who is it, Dominic Walker? That
Yeah.
you did his board for. I love all that stuff. I think it's fascinating, So I don't know, maybe we should start off with our boards, take a
Let's-
look
let's
at
look
them. Just
your
to
boards and let's talk about
like
them.
I said, Paul, this
I
is
got a
coming out in the next month or two.
Got a
So
couple
I
tools in my bag.
Jeron, why don't you go first? No, I'm just kidding.
This is like an old Schmitt Stops team bag.
I love
you
that
couldn't
bag.
get one of these unless you were on the team.
They come in like
That's
86
dope,
or 87.
dude. I love that.
Exactly.
Vintage.
That's
Brings
why the
back
ink
a lot of memories
ink is
for
so
me.
cracked.
So, Paul, while you get your tools, I'll just tell you real quick that this is the first board I have been involved with designing. Ever since a Shod Wares episode, I wanted a twin tail board.
Yeah.
So I took a board that I skated for Girl or Chocolate and had them make a twin paddle board. And they made a twin nose, twin tail, and a hybrid. The twin nose was a little too steep, too rounded, too much.
Okay.
The twin tail was a little too pointy, wasn't enough.
Okay.
The hybrid was perfect. So this is going to come out soon. This isn't the graphic or anything, but I've been riding it, testing it. These are
Get it at
also
quilltapstore.com.
yeah, these are also
Coming soon.
recycled rails that
Yeah.
Chocolate is working on right now. So this is a complete prototype board.
All right.
But this is my setup right here. These are Thunders, but I skate for
That's your curb board,
Yeah, but I
correct?
skate for Independent.
Your curb board, correct?
That's my curb board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, he's analyzing it. He's holding it up straight. He's
all he
looking
skates
down
now.
the thing. He's seeing if it's
So if we look at the edge of the board, right, your
Yeah.
foot's touching the grip tape here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. The edge of your wheel, the riding surface, the dirty edge, right?
okay.
So that is probably about 3/8 from there. So if we look at this here, that goes pretty easy. Okay. If you can see your wheels, it's not going to go easy. It's going to be harder.
Sure.
But if you see your wheels and it's harder, when it does flip, it will flip faster.
Of
Okay?
course.
And,
right.
and in this case here is you got the leveraging your curb board
Yeah.
to lean into it, into the curb to get what you want because you have that distance. If you put a wider truck on here, it's not going to act the same.
Yeah, and that's my question because sometimes I see some curb guys, right, like Tim and this and that. Well, I mean, he's got like a 10-inch board. He's like, but then
Tim runs a 10-inch board with like 41s.
yeah, but you'll see these trucks that are longer, right? Because in your mind, you're like, okay, well, if I have longer trucks and they're looser, I can get up on the curb easier, right? And what you're saying, that's not even the case because it's harder to get up onto that curb with the wider.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that your leverage to get it to lean in
Yes.
is easier here.
Right.
The wider truck may or may not because your place you're connecting here in your wheel. When you're wider, your wheel's out here, right?
Yep,
So
yep.
it changes that angle. Just like the rails change the angle. If you put them in the middle of the board or on the side, it changes that contact
Yes,
point.
right.
Right?
And that's why with this board, I put the rails in a little closer together just to see how that reacts. You know,
Right.
so I experiment a little bit. Ever since your episode and talking to a Shot and all these people, I experiment a little bit, not as much as Raj by drilling, cutting out,
I'm always experimenting.
scooping out stuff and using 0.005 grit and grip tape.
It's all good.
But I experiment. I'm trying to get down to the
So in your
axle
mind,
of
is
the
this
trucks.
perfectly symmetrical in your mind?
Yes.
Okay. So aesthetically, it looks very symmetrical. Functionally, it's not.
What, Paul? Listen, I'm trying to sell these things.
No,
bro.
not for bad. To be
Let me
clear.
get that back.
But you might want
Kelly, where's your board?
you might want to adjust it, or you might not. Okay, because if you're perfectly symmetrical in all aspects, it's like having a pocket knife of one blade.
Yeah.
If it's different on the other end, it's like a pocket knife with two blades.
Yeah, okay.
And when you understand the two blades, you can use the blades differently. So this board, when I look at fingers of flat here, and by the way, on Instagram, a lot of people complain like, use a tape measure. A tape measure isn't 3D. And because it isn't a hard line here, it's hard to tell. And then the reality is, I carry a tape measure all the time, but most people don't.
Yeah.
But if you're not carrying these, then they're not your tool anyways.
So
You've got to do two fingers,
Is
two,
your-
two
That's
toes
the
or something,
way.
right?
is your two fingers do we know what the width of that have you measured your two fingers?
They're roughly 3/4
3/4? Okay.
there, okay? But if I look at this finger, you see how this one is full flat all the way, right? And this one's full flat.
Yeah.
So this description comes from pro skaters in the early 90s because they were coming out of vert boards where the bolt holes are right on the bend. And they were like, I need more fingers of flat, right?
right.
And so if I look at this one at the tail, you can see I got pretty much, this finger is half in the flat or 2/3 in the flat and then it's in the curve, okay? But this one is like a quarter in the flat.
I could
Okay,
see that.
it's drilled
Right,
forward,
right,
which is
right.
always been a girl characteristic.
Yeah.
and an early '90s characteristic is you drill it forward because the tail you're using for behind your direction of momentum, and the nose you're using in front of your direction of momentum.
But if we move that truck, the wheelbase changes.
Well, no, but that's the problem a little bit, because ultimately the shape can change in 1/8 inch increments, lengths, wheelbase, easy,
Sure,
right?
okay.
Molds don't change in little increments like that because well, you could, but it'd be a lot of money,
Oh,
a lot of cost, right?
Gotcha.
Molds are expensive.
Very expensive, you know. But for instance, if I take this tool here, I call this tool a copycat.
Okay.
And I'm
Whoa,
looking
what are you
here.
going to do? You're going to take this home with you? You're going to recreate my board?
I'll be okay. I already know what it is. I can tell.
Whoa, what the heck? What is that called?
Okay, so we can see that it doesn't line up the same. It's a copy gauge. I call it a copycat because it lets me copy that surface, right? Mm-hmm. And judge what's going on.
Wow,
with
that's
it.
pretty sick.
So you're going off of the bolt. You're lifting up that little
Right,
middle piece where
right.
the bolt would go. Right.
Right.
So there you go.
Okay. So you see how that's behind there?
It's a little bit, yeah.
It's barely, but
It's bare, but it's
how-
funny that
how
your
you can
eyes.
tell-
Go ahead.
is this. It's harder to push here than it is here.
Interesting.
So try that. Try one end versus the other. And it's harder to press on the nose.
That board's not selling.
Oh.
This is the best board I've ever written.
That's great.
No, for real. And it's funny because in my eyes, and listen, I've been doing this for a long time, Dubs. I can't tell that difference, right?
Right.
But you have a trained, skilled eye
Right.
that can actually see that without even using your fingers or anything. Just you, by just looking at it, could see the little nuances
Right.
of that. And I'm wondering, as you said, these molds are expensive, and I'm wondering if it's almost impossible to get a completely symmetrical board.
No, it's not. Well, beyond sanding, because the sanding of the board is like not machine process, it's hand. So it's a little
hand.
bit of variable
Okay.
no matter what.
Gotcha.
No matter what, there's a little bit of variable there.
I got to go change this whole board up.
I mean, you're less than a 60, your tail's a 16th longer than your nose.
Okay.
But that to me is within woodworking tolerances. It's woodworking. Okay.
We got to edit all this out of the show.
It's not
We gotta edit all this out.
casted titanium screws, medical grade, right? It's not that.
This ain't upselling your board at all?
Well, I don't know.
So you're saying the nose is bigger than the tail?
No, the tail's a hair longer than the
Oh,
nose.
okay.
But not much.
Which is kind of
But
the
away, if we check the razor tail on it, not really razor tail much. We could check it mathematically.
I love this.
So I got this tool here. So here's the result of the truck, the board, the wheel. Okay, I'll get to zero out. Not zeroed yet.
So this is an angle tool.
This is an angle tool. So this is 34.9.
That's amazing.
Okay, 34.9.
Dominic gives yesterday 34, and we ended up getting to like 34.3. I didn't check the final board. He took it to the skate park, but he texted and said it worked really good. So I'll have to get his angle. Okay, there's 34.8.
Oh.
Yeah, I think your little angle thing is off.
Maybe
You didn't
the
zero
board
that out,
shifted-
did you?
Or the board shifted in the mold.
No, well, the reality is it's not a casted titanium part. But as I said, those titanium screws weren't casted right. So
Right.
the reality is this is well within tolerance.
Yeah, that's of
But
course.
it's understanding that, right? But as you ride this board and you grind the tail down, sometimes the board doesn't feel right when it's new, and then a little bit is worn in. It's like, it feels really right because you ground the tail down enough to change it 0.2 and it put it in the zone that was a sweet
Right,
spot.
yeah.
And now you got your punch all the way. And then as the tail grinds down more, you're like, this thing's over. This thing's horrible because
Right.
you now did that, right? Or you broke your nanotubes.
Then-
There you go. There you go.
Or maybe he never had nanotubes.
nanotubes
Maybe not.
get
Well,
broken.
So there's a little trick here. I'll show you how to judge your nanotubes.
Okay, I'd love to know.
So you look there and see how light it is in color next to the black one. You see the layers next to the black one?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, you look
Okay.
the same from this way, right?
Right.
Okay. Now change
Yeah.
your perspective.
Okay,
The color change.
Yeah.
well, it looks more greenish actually.
Right, it's darker.
Let's see.
Darker.
Yeah.
Are you talking about
Here's
the?
lighter.
You're talking about the ply above the black ply.
Right. Above and below.
Okay.
those are
Look at the
cross-
vertical ply.
Those are
Yeah.
the cross bands.
Right.
Okay.
Ah, a little darker.
So that's the grain going
yeah.
this way. So it's
Little
darker on the side,
Right.
lighter on the front.
Oh.
You know why?
Wow.
Because it's got something to do with the nanotubes.
Right. So it's sort of like, have you ever been to Mount Baldy?
No.
Okay. Well, if you go to a pipe
Maybe
and you
I
look
have.
into it,
Oh,
it's
no, I
really
haven't.
dark in there.
Right.
You know what? The grains, there's thousands of tubes right here, and it's dark. And now you're looking at the side of the tube, and it's light.
Right. Yep.
And refresh people's memory or
never
for the nanotube.
Well, that's
You got to tell people what the nanotube
So
is.
nanotubes are basically the cell structure on the outside of a tree. Trees have growth rings.
Mm-hmm.
The outside ring underneath the bark is the ring that's live and active when it's growing.
Okay.
Right. So in a maple tree, it's sort of growing spring to fall, and then fall it goes dormant.
Okay.
And then that water freezes in there. The tubes become better formed because the water expands. Okay. And then it thaws out and pours out maple syrup. Again, the vascular of the tubes are just all the better, right? You know, so those are those tubes. So when you're looking at the end, they're dark. When you're looking at the side, they're light. So if you ever see a concrete pipe on a construction site, walk up to it, look from the side, go, the concrete looks really light. Look from the end, you go like, oh, it's dark in there. Even if it's just a 6-foot piece, right?
So a concrete thing has nanotubes?
Well, maybe, I don't know.
Tubes.
But it's a tube. Why is that pipe a tube? Why don't they make square pipes or triangular pipes or octagon pipes?
It's a good question.
It's like looking at the side of a can versus looking down the barrel of the can.
I understand completely.
Right,
what
but
he's
even as a
saying.
can, why is the can round?
Yeah.
Because it supports itself. The energy spreads the energy load around it.
Right.
And the minute you take it to a different shape, energy always takes the path of least resistance. You make it a rectangle, it goes to the corner. You make it an octagon, it goes to that corner.
Right. Right.
Energy will guaranteed go to the path of least resistance.
I'm just like, it's like I'm learning shit right now.
Yeah, I know. Dubs just came
Or
from
it's being explained. I'm like, damn.
he just came from a family function,
Yeah.
like totally different, like opposite ends of the spectrum.
No,
right
but you
now.
saw it happen at the family function. Somebody spilled a drink, right? And it went out.
Right.
Why?
Fills out. And
Who spilled the
takes
drink?
path of
LD
least
spilled it,
resistance,
yeah.
right?
energy
That
takes
liquid
over.
had energy and it flows out. Same thing.
I love
Right?
this.
Like the rules of math and science and the world are there. Like we can't control
Every day.
them.
What I like about you is that you relate it easy for us to understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I would be so lost if you spoke in your words initially, but you relate. You're really good to relating things.
Well, I'm not a book engineer. So realize that a book engineer, they'll say all this super scientific, like put me against a book engineer, I'll lose. But if you want to go talk about an applications engineer, what's the application? Oh, I've done that and failed, so I learned something, so I got a judgment, right?
Right.
Like I'm really an applications engineer.
Right.
You know, how do you apply it? How do you learn from it? How do you keep it consistent?
How do you stop your board from warping?
It's a hard one.
But
With
you gotta
nanotubes,
cure it, right?
you cure it. So
It's kind of like when you cook meat, you let it sit for like 5 minutes. And
Yep.
then,
Yeah. So for us, the boards sit for a week plus before we cut them
Right.
out, and that helps cure them and stabilize them.
now after you press them, how long do you let them cure?
Well, they're only in the mold for an hour,
Right.
but the cure for a week.
Oh, they
Plus.
cure for
Gotcha.
a week.
And they could cure for a month, and it's not going to hurt anything. But it's done breathing the moisture in and out of it.
Let me ask a question. Let's say I got a box from Brian Glantz coming to visit, and I had all these boards.
Yeah.
Where was the best place for a skateboarder to put their skateboards while they're like it's at the house?
In the sun outside.
In your trunk?
No, but like obviously we know like don't put them in the trunk because I did that once a long time ago and realized that was not good.
Yeah.
But it's like is there certain
The best place is not to store them vertically like this on a tie wrap
Okay.
because they're just held loose, right? You know, the best, but when you want to display them, you want to see them. Right?
Yeah.
That's the reason you put them up.
Right. These
But,
are nobody's skating these.
Yeah.
But just trying to say that, and I don't mean it as an insult.
No, not at all.
But the best place to store boards is just horizontally and just stack them on top of each other because they're like kittens. They cuddle, right?
I'm so glad you
Just,
said that.
just horizontal. Don't leave the box on the end. So like in my factory, the only time I see a board in my factory is in the office and it's leaning up against the wall like that, right?
So even like on its side, stacked up like this, or you're saying on
Bottom of the board.
bottom of the
Yes.
I think Roger, weren't you guys arguing about this one time?
I was told to basically put them all vertical,
No.
but they're all like
But so if you think of it
they're all
vertical
cuddling one
and
another.
the nose and the tail are here,
Yeah.
it's unbalanced, right? You want to think of balance.
I just don't stack them on top of one another because the concaves are also different. You know what I mean? Because I have
Yeah,
so
but
many
they're
different boards.
still-
I
they're
stack
still
them
better
vertically
that
this
way.
Really?
in my opinion. until you can technically prove it otherwise. If you technically prove it otherwise, I'd love to know it. It's the hard reality when it comes to math and science. Like math is the way you validate science. A number is how you validate it, right?
Yeah, right.
But the reality is that your own perception is your own reality. And until you're willing to accept something else that was proven to you, because even if it was proven to you, if you didn't accept it, it's not your reality, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So I'm glad you said that because I posted this probably about 2 months ago. And this is my collection of boards.
Okay.
And, people are like, why do you stack them like that? You're going to warp them. I'm like, this is the only way that I feel that this is not going to warp them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If they're properly set within themselves.
So with that, and that's a stack of boards, probably 60 tall, 70 tall,
yeah,
3 stacks,
something
right?
like
If they were in boxes of 10, the box would be a microclimate,
that.
right? If the 10 were put in a bag inside the box, that would be another level of microclimate,
Which is a good thing.
which is a good thing.
Okay.
So ideally, if you're storing boards, they either should be 10 to a box or whatever the box holds.
If you're in that situation, yeah.
right. Or bag, or we get to just trash bag?
Yeah, use trash
Trash
easy to
bag
get.
inside a box, 2 temperature, what do you call them? Temperature controls?
Micro-
Just a little microclimate.
Microclimate. So a bag inside a box is the ideal way to store your collection of
Yeah.
boards.
Yep.
Interesting.
And,
Okay.
and if it's wheels, make sure it's a black bag, not a white bag.
Right.
Because in wheels, the
yellow.
UV
Sun
will
damage.
still come through, right? Like,
Got to stop that UV.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
so
Look at
then,
Jeron's
then if you
face.
look at like under a bed or somewhere where there's not a light, not in front of a heater vent,
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
not in front of sunshine.
I mean, maybe just in somebody's closet because their climate in their house is probably a good climate, right?
Right. Yeah, like a closet.
From
a closet's not
67
gonna have
to
a vent,
70
a vent
something.
in it blowing, right? So if the door is
Right.
shut to the closet, it's slid shut, and there's a vent over here blowing, and the return air is going out the door or underneath the crack. It's not going in the closet, so the air is a little stagnant there compared to the rest of the room.
Man, I feel Roger's itching to get
true.
in that room and fix all his shelves right now. I'm going to come here tomorrow and everything's going to be different.
For me though, I'm gonna have to stack them all by whoever pressed those boards.
I mean,
Well,
does
if
that
you
matter?
could, but yeah, well, they'd be cuddle better, but you have to know what mold they're in.
I
right?
know.
So it's a very
That,
goes
complex.
deep.
that's why I
Yeah.
stack them sideways, vertically.
And plus, Roger,
But
we
then
have to.
you can identify which ones are that type and put them together that way, really.
But also, we switch up boards
Right.
on the wall, so that's an easy
Yep.
way for us to
Yeah.
look. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. This
Instead
board,
of
this
taking the
board.
stacks and
Totally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
If we stored them like you did,
Yeah.
I mean, it'd
I
be a
can't
mess
get
in
to,
there
I can't
every
get
other
to any
day.
of my boards if I really I got to really
No,
go
that-
through a whole
that's the
I
process.
need
one
a whole
hard thing
climate
with that.
controlled room.
Yeah, instead of a wine room, Roger's gonna have a board room.
yeah,
Cigars,
why not, right?
Yeah. So I like that. That's interesting because I
Yes.
think a lot of people, like Jeron said, they have that question: how do you store? There's collectors out there,
Right.
like these old boards.
Right. So the hardest thing is if you take a board and you want to display it, right? I feel vertically is pretty good.
Sure,
It's
it's the way to do it.
Right. If you have it horizontally like this, it's actually very more unbalanced than when it's like this, right? So if you're hanging it from those 2 holes and the tip is touching the wall, at least it doesn't have pressure from anywhere. On a board rack at a shop, it's got pressure from these 2 edges sitting here. And then these are sitting against the wall, right?
Yeah.
So the shops, I've seen shops that build racks. What's the shop?
Kind
in
of like like
Austin, Texas. It's next to the skate park.
5 point.
No comply?
Yeah, right next to the skate park. Skate park's right behind
Yeah.
it. Literally, their board racks have an oval in the wood here and here. They go and they stand them up vertically.
Okay.
It's the best board rack where you can see the boards. They get more boards in the square footage visible.
Wait,
but
wait, I'm
the
sorry.
the stress is literally just on the tail and being held up here.
Explain that to me one more time. It's their board rack is rounded. What did you say?
So just look on Instagram at their shop.
Okay.
And you'll see their boards. Their boards are like at a 45-degree angle on the wall.
Yep.
Okay. So if this was the wall, the board's
Yeah.
right here.
And they all
Okay.
stand vertically.
There's an oval in here. The bottom of the board sits in
It
the
sits
oval.
in the oval.
The top of the board has an oval as well. So when you put it in, you go up like this and down.
So basically, it cradles the nose and tail.
It cradles the nose and tail, but it holds it in as balanced of a state as you can get.
Wow.
So they're both ovals are open ended. They're not like dug out. It's just an oval that goes all the way through.
All the way through.
So you go
exactly.
down, you go up, and gotcha. Okay.
So it'd be like an 8, probably.
Yeah, whatever width they have,
yeah.
or whatever they figured out.
I
But to
love
me,
that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's the
amazing.
best way to go display boards, but also then to go pick them up. It's easy to pick them up and get to them as well.
But what about in somebody's house,
But
right?
that,
They can't.
That would be the best way.
Funny question that this
Oval
is.
wall hangers coming soon.
No, but the funny question that this is, we get it a lot,
Yeah.
is how do you guys hang your boards on the wall?
Right.
And then we just say with a shoelace. Like
and a
that-
nail.
that-
And a
and
nail.
a nail,
Literally a
because-
screw and a shoelace.
Because
Right.
we obviously have a different
We switch 'em out
situation.
fast.
We switch them out for
Right.
guests and stuff. So what would you suggest for the person at home?
We need a custom build
Well, yeah,
with the oval fucking.
that would be amazing, right?
Well,
but for the
skateboardfurniture.com or something, that makes all these things.
you want to team up with Skate Light?
oh, really? But see,
I got enough work to do. Is the problem, right?
for the average person at home,
Yeah.
fishing line. I mean,
Fishing line's a good way. I mean,
Definitely.
hanging it from the truck holes like you have here is a good way to go. But it's still not, how perfect do you want to be, And how much does it matter? The reality is
that's
Yeah.
I ride a warp skateboard. You know why I warp? Because my skateboard's in the back of my truck
Right.
with pallets. It's getting tossed around and whatever. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I re-gripped my board because the board wasn't damaged. And to me, at my weight and size and how I skate, the little warp doesn't bother me.
bother you.
It's more like I want to spend my time skating, not putting a board together.
Yeah.
here is
I make boards enough. I spend time making boards. I get my joy of that.
Sure,
right?
sure.
So it's sort of like if I'm going on a skate trip for my birthday or something, I might make myself like a really extra special board.
Paul, does it ever
That's
bum you
about
out to
it.
see a warped like P.S. Schmitt board?
Yeah, but it's wood. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare. But I'm not saying it's impossible. And it's and I can't control the environment, right? Like you got to realize, at least my factory shrink wrapped. That's one microclimate. In a box of 10, that's one microclimate.
Yeah.
Stacked on a pallet uniformly, that's as good as I can make it. And then it goes in a freight truck.
in your hand.
And it might be right now in the desert, it's 110 degrees.
Yeah.
Last night in the warehouse at the coast, it was 70. Where it's going, I
You
can't
can't
control.
control,
control it.
it beyond.
I can't
leave
Once
over
it
in our
leaves your
building.
factory, you're
Right.
done, right?
Yeah.
What's the ideal way to tell if a board is warped? Because the way that I did it growing up was I would just put it on a trash can, like a square trash can,
Yeah.
and see if it wiggled.
Yeah, well, if you have a place where you can have all four surfaces balanced, so a trash can's a good example of
Yeah.
that. Like as long as it's under 24 inches in diameter and you put it across the middle, you can get that balance. You can go like, oh, does it touch? Does it move?
That
here?
was my
Or you
test.
could flip it upside down this way and see, hey, does it flip anyway? My way that I do it is I just look at it like this.
right.
Yeah.
You look at
Right down the bottom of the
Upside down?
Yeah, look right down the middle.
Do you look upside down?
Yeah, on the bottom.
Yeah.
On the bottom. And then what I do is I judge the hips.
So we got this board right here.
Okay.
So can I just look down the okay?
It's probably made by bareback.
So you're judging this. You're looking
Right.
these spots against each other.
I would say it's
It
this
was-
side. This is a little higher.
It was harder to judge before we had popsicles because they weren't balanced, right? Yeah, that side's a little high. Your eye caught it.
Damn right.
You're calibrated.
I'm calibrated. Right.
Now, do you think that's the mold?
Or just this board sitting here.
It's been sitting for a while.
for a while.
Sitting there in that situation is enough to do it for a week.
Yeah. It's been hanging on the wall.
just for a
too.
week. That could change the whole.
Really?
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, you weren't here this week. The air conditioning wasn't on. It went hotter.
Oh, dude, trust me.
Then you turn the air conditioning on.
This is not a microclimate in here.
Right.
It's cold. It's hot. It's everything.
Right.
All climate.
So
It's definitely a
about-
microcosm, but
If you think about like a kitchen cabinet door or a door in your house, it's working good, and then it starts sticking, right? When does it stick? Oh, in the winter. Why does it stick in the winter? Because the wood
Expanded.
got more moisture and expanded, right? And then in the summer it dried out. And it's like, oh, it's working great again.
my front door, I swear to God, it's the same. Yeah. When
Dude,
it's
the gate out
cold,
here too used to do that a lot
yeah.
in the winter. Yeah.
My back door does that. When
Yeah.
it's cold,
how do we
changes
rectify that?
On your door?
Yeah.
Take a grinder and grind it down.
Guys, I'm borrowing your grinder.
Get a carbon fiber door.
Paint it really good because now you opened up the fibers and you got to seal them back off so the moisture doesn't get out.
That's true.
Yeah, I think my door is steel too, or metal. It's a fire door or whatever.
Yeah, but
it's
the
apartment.
wood frame of the house expanded and contracted on
I
your
think
metal
that's
door.
what it is.
That's
Even the door frame's metal.
Right. But the is the wood house around it.
Oh, the
You
wood.
don't know what's behind your stucco, right?
Deep shit here, Skate.
Well, I love it because I think these are questions that we maybe didn't get to in your episode that are crucial, like how to store a board, how to, judge if a board's warped.
But
And
also, as I said, like from someone like me, like cruising, a warp isn't really going to matter. Right. Me, I just carve grind. But when you're set up on a mani pad to do a trick, it's a different thing, right? Because you're more like in ballet mode. Where me skating a pool, I'm more like power mode, right? I'm just like, all I'm doing is grinding.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I don't think if I got a warped board, I don't know though. I mean, still to this day, I may not put it on a trash can, but before I set up a board, I hold it and look at it
Right.
to see if I can see any nuances of like warpedness,
Right.
So you're saying that that's the best way is
Yeah.
just hold it up to your
Look at the
eye.
hips.
The
Look at the hips.
4 hips.
4 hips, yeah.
Okay.
You could also take a ruler and put it here and put it there. But the problem is your perspective. If you're holding 2 rulers like this and you're off with your ruler and then your eye can't get far enough back to see the 2 rulers,
Right.
it does no good,
Is there a question that you get asked a lot that you are like, God, if I just made a video, I wouldn't have to answer this question anymore?
Well, sometimes it's you confuse me with fingers of flat. And then sometimes like, oh my gosh, you saved me with fingers of flat.
Fingers of flat.
Fingers of flat.
Roger,
yeah.
I still think you measure the nose from the bolts to the thing, right? Do you?
So
you
let's see Jeron's board. Let's do a measuring thing, okay? So
For my board, I don't ever have any. I just look at the board and I'm like, that works for me.
So part of that's the mental connection, right? If you look down and feel good about your board, it has to feel like your arm. It's just part of your body,
Yeah,
right? It's an
exactly.
extension of your body. So mentally, you have to be there. You have to be with it, right?
Right.
But when everything's right about it, then it's supporting you as well at the same time, right?
I just want to see it real quick. That's pretty good, Dubs.
All right.
You keep your shit microclimate pretty well.
Well, it's micro garage. I don't know if it's microclimate.
So here's something that happens, and this is the synchronicity in between manufacturing and marketing and perception and misperception is what's the size of a board. So first of all, a wheelbase is measured from the center of the truck hole to the center of the truck hole. So you're at 14 inches. Now, quite often I'll put it at 1 inch instead of the little tip because it moves.
Oh.
Okay, and then I'll deduct that number, right?
So you're going from the middle of the hole to the middle of the hole.
Middle hole. So you're 14.
14.
Okay. Your nose is 7 1/8. Was that nose? I think it was when I set it down.
Yeah.
Your tail's 7. Okay. So right now, if the board's drilled centered, see if it feels that way. It looks like it's drilled really centered. Tail's a little bit shorter. Nose is a little bit longer. If the surface of the mold is the same, okay.
Is that the norm though? The
No.
little longer nose.
Longer nose is normal.
Yeah.
Yes. So, for instance, here now, this board should give us a little bit higher number off the tail than off the nose because the nose is a little longer, so it's hitting a little sooner. Right. But the key that about I consider a length to be a salesman number. Okay, because if you understand this is 7 1/8 here, and you understand this is 7, well, that's 14 1/8, and then you go like, oh, I got 14. Okay, so my mind says 24 1/8 plus 4 is 28 1/8. Now I got to add the odd number because it's 4.2, and I'm on 8s. Right?
You can get lost, right?
You
here.
lost Chris.
Yeah, you did. I'm like, yeah, you did.
Yeah, Chris. Here. So you can study your math.
No, but we're forgetting about this.
That's what he's talking
wow.
about. That's what he's talking about.
That's-
Okay.
Okay. Is this your business card?
Look at
That'd be that would be amazing.
That would
It's
be
a business
sick.
card right here. I love it.
in a sense.
Okay. Professor Schmitt, go ahead.
So you see the dimension is 2.1
2.1, right.
or 2 1/10.
2 and 1/10.
So 2 1/10 is awkward to add together. 2.1 works, right?
Okay.
So that's
Yep.
4.2. Okay. So our
4.2.
surface length of this board, we said 28 and an eighth plus 4.2. So the 0.2, we could round it up or down if we round it up, because the 0.25 would be 2/8, right? So let's round it up for easy numbers,
Please,
right?
yeah.
You know, please. So it's 32 and 3/8,
Getting lost
right?
here.
Okay,
He doesn't
that's
even know
32
he's-
and 3/8. So have you ever measured your board like this? Oh yeah, that's pretty much 31 and 7/8.
Yeah, but there's a whole column. There's the shape of the board.
Here's what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Is someone cutting this out in a CNC or an art department guide, they're looking at that.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
And then,
Straight.
and then when you take a brand new sheet of grip tape and cut it to that length, you're going to be missing on the end. Because the real surface length of the board is really 32 and a quarter.
32 and a quarter.
So 3/8 is common, depends on the mold, but the surface length versus the aerial length, right? But in a CNC cutting machine, you would just project that line down to the surface. So they think that way. And then some people compensate for the sanding, and the routing will change the dimensions a little bit. Some people don't. So the hard reality is that dimensions, it's sort of a battle, because someone in the marketing department really likes 8.3, and they're like, well, I'm calling it 8.3, right? But the reality is that they don't even do 8.2; they do 8 and a quarter, and woodworking tolerances. You know,
Amazing.
in
Could be winter or summer when they're selling the boards. Could be bigger or smaller.
Yeah, in the early 90s, I started to work with CNC machines, and we used to control everything by 16th increments. And when I went to CNCs, I tried to do tenths, and everybody's like, "You're just confusing the hell out of me now," you know. And then I just went to eighths, and I left it at eighths. Well, then marketing departments came along and, well, we use tenths for the numbers that sound good.
Oh,
8.2 doesn't sound good. 8.3 sounds magical to people.
right.
I
So
don't know why.
they're rounding it up.
Oh, I didn't realize
Right.
that.
They're just rounding it up.
Right. Or they're rounding it up, or they're, check the board. Right. So surface length really matters a lot, but when it comes to width here, it really, the surface change is so little, it's less than 30 seconds. Your tape measure can't even really catch it.
Sure.
It's so minor.
Is there a measuring system that you prefer? Is it just a tape measure, or is there a special instrument that
To me, it's a tape measure
Okay.
for sure, because that's what I keep in my pocket.
And you're so in tune with everything.
Right. And
that-
I'm in tune with it,
Well, listen, your business card is spot on dimension-wise. It is to scale.
So that's the truck hole pattern,
Right.
For a modern board.
Now, is there a reason why you have this and gave it to me?
It's part of my Create Escape template system. So I have a template
yeah.
system to design shapes. So
Got
it's a
you.
tool.
Got
It's a
you.
tool to make the tool.
Okay, got you.
So if
Amazing.
you came to my shop to make a board and you said, hey, I want to work with this, I want to mix that nose, that tail, we would take your tool and we pull the ruler out, we pull that out, and start
Right.
to make it work.
Can we have this?
Yeah.
Yeah? You don't need it?
Yeah.
definitely
No,
use
you
that.
can study your fraction to decimal conversion there. Can you recite that? What's the decimal? Hey, Kelly, what's the decimal for 1 5/8?
1 5/8 is
5.8.
no, it's 6.
1.
Wait.
1 is 1.
Wait, I'm lost right now. Okay, so 5/8. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it's 1.625.
1.625.
Can you validate that?
Yeah.
Let me see. You are correct, Professor. Schmitt. You are correct.
Right, but see on the top, you got the fraction, right?
Yeah.
So-
1 5/8.
Right.
5/8, it confuses
Eighths
people.
versus tenths.
Yeah.
And then millimeters is based on the tenth principle, right?
Points are easier to read
Yeah.
for the normal. Every time I get a tape measure out, I don't even know what it is. I just count the lines.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's 1, 2, 3, 5 lines.
How many lines are your trucks?
What?
I gotta.
The length of your trucks.
This might be a silly
20
question,
lines?
but when you're measuring the width of the board,
Yep.
you're literally measuring from the sides of that's how wide it is, or is it just is it like just a surface?
So the widest point of the board, so in this board,
Is it aerial or surface?
there's not enough of a difference. It's less than a 64th that you see difference. So I don't worry about aerial or surface here. But for instance, this board, I would call 8 1/8. Because if it's under 8 1/4 and not 8 1/8 yet, I round down in dimension. So sometimes people are like, well, that's a little more than 8 1/4. I'm like, yeah, but it's not less than 8 1/4. Now, the hard reality is when shapes are going up, it's one direction, and when the tide of skateboard changes and they go down, it gets more confused. People get more confused with it, But what I'm trying to say is that the math is math, and it stays there. Right?
What's the most
process control?
What's the most popular shape you think right now out in the market?
Size?
8¼ is the biggest percentage of what I built last year.
Okay.
But like, for instance, I did a analyzation for a customer a while ago, and 30% of what I built is in sizes they're not even doing in the brand, right? Because they're not going over 8.5 and they're not going under 8, right? They're not doing short wheelbase. They're not, making stuff for little kids, So it just depends on what the brand, but the reality is as a brand, you want to be authentic to who you are. You don't have to sell 100% of market. You got to sell the people who believe what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a brand is an amazing thing because it's a collection of people that are putting out a perception as another person at the table, and it's the brand, right? And it's the ego of everybody's perspective.
Sure.
And the reality is if it's got the consumer's attention, the consumer's willing to spend money with it, it's a very powerful thing, and it's a very respectful thing.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
No, you're absolutely 100%, 1,000 right.
1,000.
1,000. So you said that you would call that board at 8.125?
Right, 8.25.
What is that?
8 1/8.
Oh, 8 1/8. What?
8 1/8.
That's 8 1/8?
It's 8.25, but yes.
8 1/4.
Someone hit the sanding wheel a little too hard.
Yeah.
Right. But that can be someone sanded a little bit hard. Like you got 10 guys sanding boards and someone's got a little bit of different style.
You got a heavy hand.
Yeah, they got a different music on in their headphones.
Yeah.
Right. One's was listening to rock. Other one's listening to some reggae. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I think mine's a 7.78. So it's
Yeah.
like a 7.875. Does
Yep.
that sound right? Oh, nice.
See, your math is perfect there.
Right there, because I know that.
Wait
but-
a minute. Can I ask you a question? So, board comes out of the mold, hand sanded, right?
Yep.
Everything's done. Then it's dipped in the lacquer, or
It's
how
lacquer sprayed on it.
sprayed. So it's going through just being hung, and
We
then
just put it on a rack and spray it.
and just spray
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Also, one last thing, or not last thing at all. We have
Oh,
many
we're
more
done?
questions.
Okay.
No. I have to add to
Kelly's
this conversation. The color of the plies, does that mean anything? Like if it is poppier or anything? I think we might have asked that in the last one, but I can't
No,
remember.
it's been asked many times
Yeah.
by many people, and it's really just a mental thing.
Okay.
Right? It really is just
I
a
don't
mental
believe
thing.
you. I honestly, I have to
Well, that's
object.
okay. We'll make sure
I
your
have to
boards
object.
are
See,
not
you know what's
red
funny? It's
or-
like last week, whatever, like I was skating with Mario, and Mario was like, dude, like red tops, whatever. I'm like, yeah, dude, red tops, fuck red tops. And like I look down, I'm riding a red top. I didn't even realize it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You got what you wanted.
Yeah, it's working. It's
working.
Yeah, but like I didn't
So-
even like pay attention to it at all.
The mind is so powerful. I listened for the third time today on the way here. There's a podcast that came out a couple weeks ago, Carl Watson on Jenkin with a neuroscientist.
neuroscientist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing was amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Dr.
you guys
Andrew
got to
Huberman.
watch this.
Yeah,
It
we're
is
trying to.
so cool.
We're gonna have him on the show. We're trying to line that up.
Well, he believes in science, so it's rad, right? But the reality is he's neuroscience. He's like how the brain
Yeah,
thinks.
I
Like,
love
because
it.
he talked about our classic state of its muscle memory, really, and
I-
it's brain memory,
My
right?
mind was my whole life has been a lie. This muscle memory thing. It's all we talk about.
Yes,
oh, your
we've
muscle
talked about
memory.
many
Will,
a
yeah,
time.
you have
But
muscle memory.
it's your
Always like that.
perception. It's your perception of your muscle memory.
Right.
It's your perception of your 8 1/4. Right. Like your own perception is your own perception until you're willing to change it. Right. But the way that podcast carried and the way he said made you like, whoa, I can listen to some of that and challenge myself with some of those thoughts. Right.
Oh man! I mean, even the breathing aspect and the
yeah.
fear and I was like, call this guy. I
the
need
eyeballs,
him. I need
right?
him. I'm
Yeah.
like, I need this guy on the show.
Playing the
dude.
Ferrari in mind.
Yeah.
This
That
guy.
was my favorite part.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, breathing. In a sense, I never do it twice, but I do it like if I've skated a bowl real hard and I'm breathing. You know, I'm walking around breathing in my nose and out my mouth to get myself to slow down.
Right.
I was at the skate park the other week, and guys are like, "Are you in a hurry to go somewhere?" I'm like, "No, I'm checking my heartbeat. 'Cause I can't drop in again until I'm under 100. Because if I drop in at 110 or 120, 4 walls in, I'm like, I'm done.
Right.
I burn out my session, right?
Lower that heart
Fascinating,
rate.
man.
Definitely fascinating.
So, Jeron's board, good board.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
Okay.
It looks beautiful. It just
great
looks like
board.
an average popsicle.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at your wheels, look at how your wheels to the edge, you got probably a 1/2 inch from there. So this board has a little easier tip this way than
It
Chris's.
flips.
For flipping, right?
flipping, right.
Because I still flip my board, Chris.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's all right, Chris.
He's going to be flipping his board quite a bit.
This is
here.
the thing. I'll ask Kelly to leave in a little bit because we're doing Battle of the Barracks, and I need some insider information on
There we
flipping
go.
the board.
There we go.
There you go.
But we'll get to that.
You should
We'll get
come
to
watch the game and give you. He can coach you.
that. Will you be my coach? I need
Be
a
like, "Switch out your
quiver.
trucks."
No, I need like a caddy, right? I'll come over and be like, I'm gonna do a switch backside flip. You're gonna be like, this is a board you need for that trick.
Dude, please do that. That would be amazing. That'd be amazing.
I'm just saying.
Well, I still want to go meet you over at the courthouse. You get up on the stage, right?
Oh my
Are we
god,
going to work on that?
Paul. I'm not getting up on that thing.
You got it, dude.
No.
Stage will be torn down by the time you get there.
No.
Yeah, that's fine. Works good.
So let's talk about something else about trucks.
Please.
Boards, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so truck wise on here, you're running Royals. Okay, and Royals in general are like a Venture or a Thunder, and the axles lean out. So in general, shorter wheelbases are better there. Okay, but if you put Indies on this same board,
The shorter wheelbase.
the wheelbase is going to be tighter axle to axle. So we sell a skateboard based on the truck holes, but the math that happens is really axle to axle.
Right.
So when you go buy a Ford truck, Ford made the whole thing and they advertise what the wheelbase is, right? You know, but the skate shop, your wheelbase is this because you don't know what trucks you're going to buy, or you're only changing one thing. I ride 52s and I ride Thunder 147s. That's what I ride. You know, whatever your choice is, right? So the board's the only thing that's changing, and then the board gets all the blame for it.
Never.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. So
like I've got a lot of people that I make 13 3/4-inch wheelbase boards for that ride Thunders.
interesting.
Or I'll have someone say, "Hey, I stepped on so-and-so's board, and wow, that was well, they're riding Indies, you're riding Thunders, you're in the same mold right now, so let me go put that math in there, right?"
How much does that change between, like, say, a Thunder and an Indy? What are we?
Around half an inch.
That much?
Wow.
A half an inch.
It's crazy.
So if you have a 14,
And it changes based on how much you tighten your bushings, how squashed they are, right? Because
Okay.
as you squash your bushings,
go
the
in.
truck turns in. If they're really loose,
right.
it stands out, right? So there's such a variable there. And then the reality is that the trucks are always selling the next marketing thing, right? And then in the world of manufacturing, maybe the factory changed or moved to another continent or whatever happened, right? So you don't have that consistency that you thought you had, but your brain still thinks you got it because that's your perception, right?
a half an inch. So if you have a 14-inch wheelbase and you put independence on there, you're going to have a 13 and a half wheelbase,
No,
wheelbase, or a 13 and a.
It's a comparative thing, okay? If you put this board has Royals on it right now,
Yeah.
and let's say that leans out like a Thunder, right?
Okay,
Venture.
gotcha, yeah.
Okay, so that leans out. So right now this angle is touching here, right?
right.
But if I put an Indy on the same board,
Right.
the axle's going to be here, and the tail's going to hit sooner, and the number's going to be lower.
Oh.
Okay.
So you get more leverage with those than you do with the Indy?
Well, it's interesting because there's the leverage when you're manualing and that flick, right? And then there's the leverage of when you connect. Okay. So the connect is sort of this part, right? Right at the right place.
Yeah.
But the leverage to get there is this piece,
Yeah.
right?
Interesting.
So where the holes are. So I could take this board, for instance, right now. If I had this uncut out and I was just in my shop making a board, I could just make two boards, one for Thunders, one for Ventures or Royals or whatever it is, and then go out and ride them.
Right.
So Indy's churn tight, that's known, right? But it's because they make the wheelbase smaller. However, Thunders and Ventures went the direction they went in the 90s because that wasn't where skateboarding wanted to go. It wanted to not churn. It wanted to be stable. So it went bigger wheelbase. So a lot of the boards in the 90s, as much as 14 was the norm, there were a lot of 14 and a halves as well.
Okay, let me ask you, your little angle device. What's that called?
I mean, this is a Wilsey digital angle gauge.
Okay, an angle gauge.
So it's got a magnetic bottom to it, but it doesn't quite fit across the truck hole. So I put I glued magnets onto it. But it's really a digital angle gauge for my table saw. So you have a table saw blade. You put it on. You put it on the table and you zero it out.
Yeah.
You put it on the blade. Crank. Perfect 90. Okay. Now my cut will be square. Where if it's 89, your part's not going to be square, right? Or maybe you're looking for 83 because you're making a segmented bowl, and you got to get all those pieces to match up.
So what's the main thing that you're looking, like if somebody went out and bought that, an angle gauge, what's the main thing that they're looking for? Comparative.
It's just comparative.
From the nose and the tail to when
The nose and tail, your setup versus somebody else's setup. You could also get a digital angle gauge at Home Depot that looks like a little level. It's a built-in level.
Okay.
And you could use that and just hold it on your board. You know, and then when you're a carpenter already, so you can use it in your job too, right?
There you go. There you go.
know, and I can use this on my table saw.
Yeah.
Get back to the shop.
Okay. I was just curious about the
So it's more about comparative because again, I don't believe there's a right or wrong.
right.
There's just a comparative. There can be an ugly, you know,
That's true.
from that context.
That's true. That's
you know,
true.
For to me, a board that's pointy in the front and wide in the back, to me, and part of it's growing up, my board should always be, nose should be longer in the front, should be a little wider in the front, less in the back. That's just I feel that's what looks right, but some people like it perfectly the same on each end. But then you take a cruiser and it's like, oh, it's got no nose and it's pointed, but what's its purpose? It's a cruiser.
Cruise.
Well,
Right.
I want to ask something. When it comes to the trucks, is there? Cause you said the axles go different directions on some of them, like Indies go
Yep.
inward. You said.
Oh no, the axle where the axle sits.
Oh, okay,
so it's the axle
between, like, the
relation
bolts.
Yeah,
in
okay.
between the bolt hole and where the axle is.
Is there?
So if I look at this, it's really close. Has anybody got a board of Indies on it?
No, but I skate for Indy.
Yeah.
I don't have a
But
board. No.
I was wondering, what's if you were? I guess it depends on the board, the shape of the board. But what's like the best for like flip tricks?
Again, I don't believe there's a right or wrong.
It's all personal still.
No, totally.
Where your body's at. Where your body's at.
But like, okay,
Because
I was
as I talk about that punch, right? Your body's at the length of your legs, your weight, your mass.
I was asking that because of where you say the wheels sit on the board to the edge, and
Yep.
that makes a big difference for how your board flips. I didn't know if that had anything to do with the certain trucks too. But
It's also like
where
It's just the
shape
width
of the board
truck.
too.
Yeah,
It's everything, right? It's almost like you get to your perfect board and then make those minor adjustments.
Right.
But like you said, like Indies turn better because the wheelbase is
Right.
somewhat
But
smaller.
if I take some Thunders and make the axle be in the same place, I'm not saying the Indy still won't turn tighter because of the geometry of the truck, right? But the framing of where it is the framing of where it is, right?
Yeah.
Like we're near the Pacific Ocean here. We're nowhere near the Mississippi, right? We're framed by that.
yeah.
So it's that kind of context where you just, you know.
But you
it
could
just
take a
frames
pair
it.
of Thunders, put some like wedge riser pads under there, and force
get 'em to lean
bring it in a little bit, and then all of a sudden they could turn like Thunder. I mean, turn like Indies.
Yeah, totally.
Sometimes I question Roger's philosophies. I don't know.
no,
When it comes
years
to
ago,
skateboards, I think he knows.
Nah.
wedge
He definitely
pads
knows
were
the
very
shit.
common in the 70s, especially with the slalom
I never even
guys.
heard of that.
They tuned the way their truck turned, so they detune the back truck and make the front truck more
That's
aggressive.
interesting. It's a riser pad that's on angles.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So you got longer bolts on one end and shorter on the other.
Yes.
And that then takes that and tilts it like
Which
this,
in turn
or
you
like
could just
that.
turn it
Right.
to whichever way you want.
So
right?
so years ago, I did this thing with Danny Way and Rob Deerdick for Danny Way doing a speed challenge
Mm-hmm.
and getting towed by Rob in his little car and a Guinness thing. And I made special base, and he's like, I'm not riding none of those goofy trucks. I got to be Indies. I'm not riding those reverse kingpin, more stable things. I got to ride Indies.
Okay.
So I made a set of base plates. I had my in-house machinist at that time, make a set of Indy base plates out of a billet of aluminum that took and put the wedge built into it. So we detuned the Indies so that they were more stable.
He's skating an Indy hanger with a
Special base.
special base plate. Now, why not make the riser pad that we were just talking about?
In this case, that's just what we decided to do at that time.
So you were basically
and Danny was like, just like I'm not riding goofy trucks, I'm not riding riser pads, right?
Okay.
Like that kind of.
so
like,
you're basically
his
taking the
coordinates.
Indy zone and you're pushing the axle out towards the nose and tail, toward the tips of it,
Right.
rather than inward.
Right.
So that way, give you more stability.
More stability.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking to myself, like, you can actually CNC a bunch of different angle riser pads to get that exact movement that
Right.
he wants.
Right, but he didn't want riser pads.
Right. Which made it harder for you.
I made it happen.
How many tries did it take to get the truck the way that did it
We
take?
just made it.
But what I'm saying though is like,
Worked first try
yeah,
out.
but that's what I'm saying though. Did he have to test it and be like, oh no, I need a little bit more?
Danny looked at it. It looked like what he wanted it to look like.
Okay.
So therefore, his mind felt good about it.
Okay.
We made two different variants of a board. One, I literally put, it was still flexy when he got up to like 50 or something. I put carbon fiber on it and stiffened it up a little bit more. And then he went 73 or 7. I can't remember what it was.
Standing up? He wasn't losing?
No, but he was getting towed on a
was getting
runway
towed.
out in the desert.
Psycho.
But it was only a mile to make it happen.
Yeah.
But the runway was pretty rough. I mean, it was recently new, but it's a runway, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not a basketball court.
Goodness.
What other trucks are shaped like Indy? Is there any other ones?
Well, lots of people have imitated an Indy, so you can't say there's not.
Yeah.
And just like in the world of downhill trucks, people have put so much money into CNC engineering downhill trucks or longboard trucks. It's crazy. That I get blown away what they do, but it's also an enthusiast doing what they do, right? Like the reality is, if you have those tools, you have that knowledge, and you have that access, right?
Yeah.
Why not? I did what I did my whole life because of the access I had in between what my mind was willing to do to face that challenge, right?
And you want to make a better product.
Yeah.
I've been seeing Ace recently, and where does that fit into with the?
So the Aces are based on original Indy geometry, like Indy 1 or 3 or something, and they're actually another 1/8 inch shorter than an Indy.
Oh wow!
Wheelbase, axle to axle.
Yeah.
But Ace has been doing some neat things with different nuts and axles, and they're trying to change it up. And I really applaud the willingness to try, whether it sticks. If nobody copies it, then I guess it's no good. Somebody copies it, it does.
I mean,
right?
that's the biggest compliment, right?
Right. It's like this, the kingpins on here are great, right? Like from that context of grinding, and as long as they're engineered to be stable and the kingpins don't wobble, they look pretty good. That's the hardest thing with this kind of kingpin,
like a bunch of mice.
is it's going in the base plate and it's just leverage, right? You have all this leverage out there to make that bolt want to move. Do they ever get wobbly or?
No, they don't.
That's great. So part of that is just good engineering, good tolerances.
Yeah.
Jeron hasn't ridden that
kind of
board in months.
It's been a while.
I trip out on
He puts it down.
I trip out on my board. My board squeaks a ton.
Yeah.
And it's always like I'll go to other people's board and it doesn't do that. On mine, always squeaky.
What bushings do you use?
The medium bones.
That's what I ride, and they'll squeak till they work in, and then they don't squeak anymore. For me, personally.
Yeah, but also like the bones bushings might not be the exact size of the stock bushings that you ride.
Yeah.
So you might actually be tilting your truck a little bit.
So what I do with my bones bushings is on the very top where the nut is, I don't use a washer.
Oh,
I put
okay.
a washer underneath the very bottom
Raise it up.
and lift it up, because otherwise it gets clamped down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a minute,
And
you don't put that washer on there?
Nope.
You want your bottom bushing to be the same size as the stock bushing that comes with almost.
Well, it's all about fluidity. Fluidity in bushings is really interesting. I used to make bushings in the 80s, and it's a very challenging thing, the balance of it.
Because if you change the size of the bushing, whatever, it's going to change the geometry of the entire truck, whatever, because it's going to sit different.
Yeah.
For good or bad.
If it's sitting downward, it's going to pinch a little and it's going to make that squeaking noise.
So look at this. See how the yoke of the truck is not parallel to the base plate? You should put a washer underneath the bottom. So look at this. You can see the angle of the bushing sitting on it and the angle of the truck. So this truck is squeezed down right now.
Interesting.
Right.
And if you put a washer underneath here, it will lift it up.
Right.
Under the bottom.
Okay.
The bottom.
Right. And wheel bite will a little bit less because now the wheel's a little bit higher from the surface of the board. And the angle is also making it swing a little differently. So instead of hitting here, it's going to hit there
Right.
And also slightly change the wheelbase.
and slightly change your wheelbase.
I do see a little wheel bite there, Dubs.
I got a couple little rides on there.
A little wheel bite.
So out of curiosity, let me look at your trucks.
Please do.
No, so
Yeah, so yours still as well. Part of it is I didn't design the truck, so I can't say how they designed it, right?
Got you.
But in my mind, when that's parallel, the bushing has uniform pressure on it.
Right.
So I'm a big believer in balance. So this is out of balance,
God damn it.
right?
but that's stock bushings, though, right?
Right,
Stock.
stock. But being out of balance, it's also under pressure.
How can I get them back
of
in
that.
balance? Because this is my problem.
Loosen your trucks.
They're pretty loose and they squeak.
Yeah.
But
So try just putting one more washer in it, just see how it goes.
one more because this is the thing, Paul.
But then you might go, it's too tight now.
no,
right?
no, because I have problems with my bushings blowing out all the time.
Okay.
You stock bushings?
Yeah, stock, bones, whatever it is, they blow out like after like a month or so.
So what you're saying? Put another washer under.
A flat washer
Flat
underneath
washer.
that washer.
Underneath this
Yeah.
washer.
Wow.
Yep.
And that little washer can have a huge impact.
A huge effect.
Wow.
That
Now,
type
part-
of shit blows my mind.
Part of the
Yeah.
problem, though, is that now can you get your nut on all the way?
Oh, I'll get my
Still
nut
have
on.
the tight-
I'll get my nut on, Paul.
Sugar getting on or off.
Trust me, I'll get my nut on. Kelly, we're talking about the schematics of my skateboard.
I know, it's funny.
But that's the stuff that trips me out, Paul, is that little washer can have that big of an effect on my board.
So just think about this. So like when we look at technology, the start of technology being society knowing it was really man going to the moon, right?
Okay.
They couldn't miss going to the moon by 0.000000078.
They had to be spot on.
right?
Right.
That the technology that they had and the focus on that, and things are made under passion for a product, right? And I'm not saying it doesn't work good, but what principle did you build it under, and did you build it under on purpose of that principle or not on purpose, right?
Right.
Because what happens is if the bushing is pinched like that, it is under load, and being under load, it's going to push back when you flex it, and you want a bushing to give and give back,
Right.
right? Just like your board, you want it to flex a little bit and you want it to give back.
It's all fascinating, man. I
really
love this skateboard talk. I'm going to go put a washer under there and see how it goes. Like
there
for
you
real.
go.
Because I do, my bushings blow out. I don't know why.
Dude, that's the shittiest feeling for some reason.
It's the worst because
Yeah.
then I ride in a symmetrical board, which, whatever Paul says, but I think it's symmetrical.
It's close.
It's damn close. Only Paul knows.
No, it's damn close.
Only Paul knows. But that little, then it throws my whole board off because the bushing blew, and so now the trucks are unstable.
Yeah.
And so now my board's turning whichever way. So I always try to I'll unscrew it a little bit and turn my blown bushing towards the back.
Okay.
The where it's blown, and then tighten it back down so that I can at least get a little bit of
Can you get some new
Try to
bushings?
offset it.
yeah, just get some new bushings.
Where the hell? Bushings are hard to come by.
I actually hit up
Hit up
Jeron for
Jim.
some mediums, and he said they're all out.
I don't.
Like,
But see, I used to ride. I don't know. I'm confused.
He said
now.
I just
Super Crush.
dude, when I skate flat ground and my bushing's blown, it's the worst feeling. Like pop.
Bushings is such an
it is.
important part.
It's just it's
But
gross.
that's like when you're skating flat ground, it's like freestyle. You're at this really finite control, right?
Yeah.
You're at that place, where 1 degree this way makes the difference or not.
Totally. The board I have now, like the bushings, everything is like literally perfect. So I'm like really happy. But I know in about a week, it's gonna be.
It's
gonna
it
change,
changes so
much.
Also, your wheels are changing because you're skating your board more. And
Yeah.
everything's changing.
Yeah.
Your pop's changing because you're sliding your tail
But like
more.
you always want to set your board up so it's like that perfect feeling, right? And it's always hard to get to that perfect feeling.
And that's why it's
Which
so
is weird.
individual because the perfect board for you may be this shit board for me. Right? I can get on your board and be like, this thing. I got on
Yeah.
Kelly's board the other day. It was horrible. But for him, it's the most perfect thing ever.
Right.
Yeah,
Or what did it teach you? There was something I liked. This worked, that didn't work.
Right.
Well, why did that work and why didn't this work?
I had a board madness a while back, and I think I've talked about it a few times in the show. But Shane O'Neill told me something. He's like, "Oh, dude, get 147 highs." I was riding Venture Lows, and I don't know if it was that did it, but like maybe it was just Shane O'Neill telling me what to ride. And then when I did that, my skating went up. Like,
But the reality is that now riding the high truck, it takes longer for your tail to hit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what geometry differences the truck could have, but in the idea of being higher, it's taking longer for the tail you hit, and now your punch is in the right place, where before your punch was right here.
exactly, yeah.
Right? It's that difference. Now, you could have done it with an 1/8-inch riser pad, maybe.
Yeah. Or you could rub bigger wheels.
Or you could have rode bigger wheels.
Yeah. I think the 147 high is the way to go for me personally.
Listen, if you
It's
discover
like the
something,
medium truck, I got all psycho about it, and then like the board I was skating, I was trying to call Jamie Thomas to see if he could send me this one shape, and then I just felt like I lost my mind. So
Yeah.
I tried not to go down that route anymore.
Well, I see when people come to me, their initial perception is usually right.
it's your gut feeling.
The gut feeling is usually right. The path to get there is the part that always blows them away.
Right.
But their gut feeling was right.
Always go with your gut.
but knowing how to get there. Is the
We're
challenge, right?
getting there.
Trial and error.
We're getting there.
Right.
It is.
So luckily in my workshop, because the truck and the wheel aren't changing, I can change it in the board, right? I can change it in the mold, the tail length, the fingers are flat.
Yep.
You know, I got the tools and variables to do that. And then if we build a template, it's systemized and we just build the same thing over and over.
It's interesting, Jeron.
It is very interesting.
Sometimes it's like a book, right? You read a book, but there's only so much information you need
Right.
to you can intake, right? You need to read it again.
Well, what
to
happens is it's really what you intake, right? But then when you have interactions in the world out there, and then part of it peeks out to you because you saw this, and part of it peeks out of you because you saw that.
Right.
Because really, if it's not relevant to your life, it's irrelevant, right? And then when you find the relevance,
you got to go back.
then you're like, oh, I'm going to go back and dig some more. Wow. But until you have that, it's like as a kid, you're taught things and you don't know who taught you that, but you've been using it all the time. And 10 years later, you become an adult, you're like, oh yeah, Mr. Johnson taught me that when I mowed his lawn. And you've been using it your whole life, but you didn't know Mr. Johnson gave it to you, right?
Exactly.
That's real shit.
Johnson.
I'm seeing it real time with my son. I'm like, where did you learn that from? You know, on day-to-day things.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously he's living in our world and he's seeing things and it just automatically, like they just are sponges to learning things. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I definitely
I
understand
Where
that.
did you learn that from?
Yeah. I'm like, what the? Okay.
Okay.
I don't think I taught you that, but I'm loving what I'm seeing.
As long as it's a positive influence, it's a good
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
Do you want to look at Kelly's board? He was just asking.
Oh, yeah, I
about
wanna
So,
this.
s-
so show us your board. Share your perspective about your board first.
It's the best. It has my name on it, and
Yeah.
good wheels, good trucks, good grip tape.
But it's
No,
not
this one.
PS6.
So usually this is PGI.
Okay.
I've noticed this actually a few times that like this one feels steeper on the sides and the nose and tail, and I like that a lot more.
Yeah.
But it's
But that's just like having a higher truck. It's doing the same thing.
Yeah,
It's taking
okay.
longer to hit.
and I didn't think I liked that before, but on this certain the way that I mean you know all the terms, but the way that the board is shaped, I like it with the steep and like with that shape and the steepness is like perfect right here.
Right.
Could
your
that
mind-
be from the where it's at in the press too?
Yeah, depending how that's pressed, because most of the China stuff is single press.
Because I got this shape, a lot of the times I'll get the same shape, the G021 or whatever it is, and it'd be like really, really flat. And I don't like those boards, but this one's steeper, and I really like this. So it's hard to like, if I get this board, it's hard to know whether if I'm going to get delivered this one or a flat one.
In my factory, the way I process things, I can use the same shape in different molds, and it will give you a different perception, even though technically looking down from space, it's the exact same shape, but the interaction with the surfaces is different.
Yeah. So if I gave you this shape, could you replicate that on like a certain mold? I don't know. Like, how does that work?
There's the stuff I made for you before, and I don't know if it matches that or not, you know, and I could look that up, but you know, if you came in the shop, we'd figure it out.
Yeah, you did.
It's really about how much time you give it, right? Because sometimes it's sometimes it's one hit wonder and the answer's there, and then sometimes it's like 6 times and like, oh, this is getting weary for the rider, you know.
yeah.
It just depends how it goes, you know.
There was like, I remember that board you gave me. It was really good, and I skated. And then like, there was one trick. It's funny how you look at it too, because hard flips were not working on that board.
Yeah.
But then I could have learned this. Dude, someone's calling me. That's driving me nuts.
Could
Sorry, it was Crush. It was your friend.
Could
Crush.
he?
Sorry.
We're meeting at
Crush
the
it.
bungalow after
Yeah.
this.
Like with the Bugsby's.
So I could have like relearned how to do hard flips, I guess, in a weird way to do it differently. But I don't know, for some reason, that's why I went back to this, because
Could also be your body though, because you're dealing with a hip thing.
I got back on this board and it was fine.
Really?
But I'm just used to this. I'm used to doing the way that my feet move. Is I'm used to this shape, right?
But
Does that make
can't he
sense?
just change like even the diameter of his wheels, right? Can change everything.
Yep. Change it all.
But anyways,
Let the professor get that board.
Let him analyze your board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a tarot reading or something like that. Like he's just like
I know.
reading your
But be
your
clear
board.
that I don't really have the answer. I'm just bringing
Yeah.
things to your awareness,
Absolutely.
right? Like I can't magically make your board perfect for you. It's a feedback thing.
Yeah.
It's action reaction. Without interaction, it's irrelevant. It
Exactly.
doesn't matter, right?
Right.
But you could just easily tell him like, hey, move your foot back a little, and that can actually change everything.
So I brought a little something to show
Okay.
to show how measuring skateboards goes.
Yeah.
So when you measure it like this of an old school yardstick,
Yeah, mix my paint with that.
that's what you get, right? So this is a ruler I made for a trade show giveaway in the 80s. I had a skateboard called a yardstick. Amazing. So I gave
Okay.
grip tape was sold in rolls. It wasn't in sheets back then. So they measure, you buy it by the inch or by the foot.
Right.
6 inches of red, a foot
I
of
remember
black.
that board. Was that in the late 80s?
Yeah, the yardstick.
Yeah, all through the 80s,
I
yeah.
remember that.
Then there's reissues out now, but I don't have anything to do with those. But anyways, so people always ask me about these. I pull them out for things. So
Yeah.
I thought you guys all
God
could use
damn.
an old school yardstick.
Oh, thank you, bro.
Sick.
Hey, don't grab that.
Whoa, wait, hey,
Oh,
hey,
yeah, that
Jesus
is how they
Christ.
used to
Just
use
try to try
those.
my knuckles, man.
And then you can share those with some of your listeners. Maybe a contest or someone mathematically answers something right or something. I don't know.
This is
dude.
this is great because I've been trying to measure something and I haven't had enough.
Length.
Yeah, not enough length. But this is perfect.
Yeah.
This is perfect. Thank you.
So I have my Crate Escape ruler here that goes with the Crate Escape piece, right? So this ruler flexes to the surface
That's
of the board.
the thing that I was
Yeah, that's
asking
the one.
before with
Okay.
the god
That's surface area.
damn.
right? That goes, let's give me the surface
Ruler.
area, and then I can center it in the truck holes, and then get the center of the board right there. Right?
Amazing.
And then here you can see that it's 1/8 inch increments, but here you can see they're 16ths, because if you're going to take your shape and make it 8 3/8, you got to understand your 16ths now.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. You know, so it's just fractions.
Love it.
So okay.
Let's look at his board. So first of all, this board looks classic early 90s. Nose is taller than the tail.
Right.
We got a lot of fingers of flat. We got almost 2 1/4 fingers of flat on the tail.
Jesus.
Okay, we only got 1 finger of flat on the nose.
Ooh.
you know?
Wow. No
Okay.
wonder.
Okay. So let's get into the angle here that's working for Kelly today.
Yeah.
And what's so magical about this for him.
It's not center drilled.
Okay, it's not center drilled at all. Why isn't that zeroing out? It's Kelly's board. Let me
broke it.
turn it off.
I would say
Back on. It's a Kelly thing.
fucking thing just
There we go. We got numbers again.
fizzled out his angle.
34.6.
Okay.
I'll turn this around so you're.
Yeah. Oh, there
I don't know.
you go.
I don't know if it's 34.6 here because the table might be 1/10 of a degree off.
Interesting.
So
right.
what's the number read here?
34.6.
Pretty level table.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, the guys at Focus Woodwork.
Yeah.
You already know. Focus Woodwork.
Yep.
There you go.
All right. So that was 34.6, right? So now we're going to check
Okay.
the nose here.
Nose. Do you have a guesstimation of what the nose will be just by looking at it?
That's 34.6.
Let's see.
It's a lot steeper nose,
Right.
but it's also a lot longer.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking it's going to be higher.
Almost 40.
35, 37, 37.6.
35.2.
I was so
Oh,
close.
wow. Okay.
That's a big difference. Not saying it's bad. It's two blades in your knife, and they're very different, right? So if you're riding this board and you can't get up on the hubba, turn it around and use the nose as your tail. You'll get up on the hubba now.
Oh, really? So it takes longer for the nose to hit the ground?
But it's a steeper angle when it gets there. So the steeper the angle, the
Might have a
higher
little
the
pop.
board's going to go.
Right.
Right?
Interesting.
Because what's happening is you go to ollie, you're stomping it, right? And then you're jumping, the board's bouncing to you, right? But that place that it kicks off, hits the ground, dictates how far it's going to go, right? So the later it hits, the further it goes up. Because the more swing, because when you go push on the other end of the board and level it out, right?
So you want
So
a
if you got a
board.
tail at like 60 degrees, you could probably all it over anything.
I was going to say. No, but that's 60 is a little much,
Yeah.
Raj, right? So
That's a lot.
So you have a 1/2 inch difference in nose to tail. So you got a 6.5 tail and a 7-inch nose.
Okay.
In general, this board is short. Let me see, what's the wheelbase at?
14.
14 looks like it might be 14 and an 8. No, it's still 14. Okay. You know, so your surface measurement on this board is 31 3/4. your aerial dimension is 31.25 because the nose is so steep.
Crazy. I've never really looked into the dimensions. I just
But
once
this
I
one-
skated it, I was like, "Yep, this is it."
So this is real easy to
I knew
push
it.
on this side and lift it up.
Right.
It's really hard to push on this side.
I've kind of noticed that on
feel
nose
the,
manuals.
feel
to
the
be
difference.
honest.
Oh yeah, big time with nose manuals.
I've literally felt. I was like, well, "This feels weird," even though you get used to it.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
I've never built a jig to like. I had in my mind like, hey, if I built a tool with like weights, you know, and you put a weight, how much weight does it take to get this board to lift?
Right.
But again, it only works comparative, right? It's comparative with this size wheel, this size truck.
Completely different board if you put different trucks and
Right.
wheels on there.
Absolutely.
So Kelly doesn't see his wheels either. Likes to see a hint of his axle, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Actually, what drives me nuts about those axles right now? I don't like the dark ones. Like I like the silver ones.
Okay.
You mean the nut itself?
The nut, yeah, because like I don't know why it makes it.
Well, it's contrast, right? Your
Yeah.
your eye is picking it up. So by seeing your nut,
Yeah.
you get this contrast. So yeah, maybe someone's talking about colored nuts.
Yeah.
For that reason. No, but I
like
see
blue.
a lot of guys being like, I want to see the nut.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
my key, right? It gives me my center of balance.
With the money shot.
And
You always wanna see
And
the nut.
I'm above my board, and I want to lean over that little bit and see my nut. And I know. You guys are bad.
I mean, blue nuts are the worst.
Okay. So Kelly's riding surface is closer
trying
to
to get
the
my
edge
nuts
of his board. You guys, we're trying to scientifically
I mean, listen,
diagnose something.
he's
here.
got
Where
he's
are
got
your heads at?
I got way more to
no,
go. Too.
he's got a hell of a wheel bite also.
Yeah, he does.
I've had that board for a while.
And he rides
See
with a
that?
small
Look how
wheel.
squeaky it is.
Yep. And you like your front truck so much looser than your back truck?
I guess. Yeah. No, for sure.
Well, some people steer with their front truck. Some people steer with their back truck. But, you know, when in the balance thing, when you have it this different, you know, and you want to be symmetrical and you don't care, well, then you just blew it out the door if things aren't the same.
I've never really
close.
analyzed my truck's scenario.
Yeah.
Just whatever feels right, that's it. You know, I don't like remember. But I do know if I skate it backwards, it feels insane.
Right.
My board feels nuts when I skate it backwards.
Because your
So
front truck's so loose.
here's a use for the ruler, a good use for a ruler like this. I'm looking at the riding surface right to the edge of the board.
Okay. 29? 29 and a half? No,
Now
29
I'm sighting the
Oh, I see
dirty
what you're
edge
saying. Gotcha.
with the ruler, and I
Okay.
can see he's got about 3/8 of a board hanging out there.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right?
I see.
Now, if I put a wider wheel on the board, it's going to be less. If I put a narrower wheel on the board, see, the madness is crazy, right? Because you mix all these pieces up. I mean, Kelly has a washer on the outside under the nut,
Right.
And if you put those washers on this side,
Yeah.
it'd be a little harder to flip the board. But when it does flip, it's going to be more reactive.
Huh.
See, because I put a washer on both in and
Yeah.
out.
I don't. I just put them on the inside.
But
on
what's
the
I thought that
inside.
was what you're supposed to do. I like this. It was just there. So
Nothing. I mean, nothing's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Right. If it
all
works for you, it
preference.
works for you. But believe it or not, you can change that and get something out of it. Right?
What would it change anything if I just didn't put them on there at all?
Yeah, because now your
gonna
wheel's going to
change
be
it.
further from the edge. The one you really need a washer on the inside because the cast hanger of the truck, as much as they've tried to make it precision, is a cast hanger against an axle because the axle had molten metal poured around it, and so you really need the washer there to take care of any burrs or anything and
That's what
flatten
separates
it
the
out.
bearing away from the axle.
To separate the bearing away. But on the front side, the nut has a bevel on it. You don't need a washer on the front side. You can put one on there.
It's got a
It's-
bevel.
again,
But
it's
if
preference.
you use spacers, it helps. Continue have your wheel continue to spinning.
Right, but the spacer is because your bearings are locked together and in parallel. But they got to work into that. So you'll get fuel because you're like, I'll tighten up my wheel, and they're like, oh yeah, it's no good, and then back it off, right? But if you tighten it up and ride it, it will work in, and then the wheels will spin really good.
Interesting.
What-
Right.
Now, part of that is shrink rate with urethane, because when you make a mold for urethane, you got to calculate the shrink rate. But let's say the temperature was off by 10 degrees and it shrank more or shrank less. And a thousandth of that or whatever could be enough to make that tension work. Or you put aluminum spacers in there because they're lightweight, right? You crank it down, take your calipers. Oh, they went from 400 to 390. No wonder my bearings are locked up because I squeezed them together, right?
Right.
You know?
Madness. Like you said, it literally. I mean, Kelly could put a skinnier wheel on there and change the whole dynamics of his board.
Right.
Paul, who do you think is making the best wheel right now?
I've been riding the Bone skate park formula for years, but I'm a pool rider, skate park dude, you know. I really like those for.
But as
skate
far as
parks
like
and ramps.
precision is like how they're built, like
Really good. I mean, I put a new set of bones on my board when I gripped it the other month, and put the spacers that came with it, which are aluminum spacers with light on the touch, but they were a perfect, spun great right away, instantly. And they're Swiss bearings too, right? Good bearings, you know, in that context. But I haven't gone and tried everybody's stuff.
Yeah.
When I've pretty much been riding those wheels for 10 years since they came out. And whenever I try anything else, I just go back to them because I like the way they slide. I like their hardness, their grip. They're good on a ramp. They're good on cement.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do the turbines for New Deal back in the day?
Yeah.
The sound they made when they were spinning.
Right.
Like,
Part of that was the air in the hub, and then part of it was the fact that they were stone ground surfaced.
so you
they didn't
basically
have
take
that
the
cast
urethane and
surface.
just kind of like press it against a wheel.
The way they were done is they were centerless ground. So they would be run through a centerless grinder, which is a machine with a bunch of wheels in it. So you take the wheels, put 20 of them on a rod, tighten it up, and then run it through the machine.
Gotcha.
But it could also happen on a lathe with a grinding wheel.
What the hell's going on?
I don't know.
Man.
So Kelly's fucked. Is that what we're saying? He can't come.
No, Kelly's fabulous. He's got what he wants. He's happy.
I'm stoked.
The
Right.
best
This one's working.
thing to be as a skateboarder is happy.
But the
Let me-
problem
let me-
is-
let me show you one other
Please
trick
do.
here.
But the problem is
Have your ruler.
Kelly is now on the eternal search for that shape.
Right.
He's stuck.
No,
He
exactly.
needs to figure.
It's the off center that he's loving.
He's chasing the dragon.
You need this ruler.
Yeah, one ruler. I want to show you guys something. So when I put a board together in my workshop with somebody, I'll have someone go like, "Oh, my board's turning crooked," and I'll go put a ruler up against it. See, so as you look down that, Jeron, you see this base plate is turned a little bit this way.
Yep.
You see how that gap is right there, and we're talking a fingernail gap, not a lot, right?
Right.
Okay, and over there you can see it's perfect, right?
A millimeter.
So if you keep a aluminum ruler wherever you set up your board and put it against. And then what I do is I take and snug up 2 bolts, and that way you can still wrench the truck a little.
Right.
Get it till it lines up right, and then crank it down.
Crank it down. Right.
So I've had pro skaters come to me and go like, "Oh, my board's crooked," and I'm like, "Your trucks are crooked." And you'll see people all the time being like kicking their truck, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes is it a nervous habit? I'm in a contest kicking my truck, or is it necessity, right?
Right.
And I remember years ago at Woodward, there was like a mega ramp contest, and Burnquist kept on kicking his truck. And each time his board would fall down, I'd pick up his board and look at it. And he started with his trucks perfectly straight. And then when you sight the hangers, that's your how it looks, right? And they were perfectly straight. And then basically by the end of the day, his trucks were crooked because flies 40 feet in the air and all that stuff. But his hangers were still parallel because he'd been kicking his bushings enough.
Right.
And then basically what I led him to, the key is if you don't like loose bolts and you don't like your trucks to move, when you have a brand new truck, take the strip of grip tape from the corner of the nose, grip tape the bottom of your truck, okay?
to make some.
And then as you put it down here, as I talk about that, put a ruler against it, snug it lightly.
Right.
Then when it's dead straight, tighten the 1,000 nails into your board
Yeah.
that aren't going to let your truck move.
Because you've just made a rough surface for that to indent into and hold tight. So are we putting together one, or maybe we're putting one truck on first fully, or
No.
you're doing it
No, do both trucks just 2
Light.
bolts, light,
Okay.
and put a ruler against it, make sure
Yeah.
it's right.
Or get yourself some tensors. They have the little dimples on them.
Yeah, because I've never done
Right. So in the case of a tensor, you want to make sure you have it loose.
Yeah, because if the dimples are wrong, it's just going to be wrong.
Right. The dimple is there for that reason, right? It's acting like a little nub.
Because what I do, I've never done that test, which I will now that I have the yardstick, but and other tests too.
Damn, I'm not 9 inches yet.
I just haven't found a ruler big enough. What I'm saying is like, I usually just go corner. I screw it in slowly, right? I'll do a little slow here, a little slow to hopefully
sort of like
get that.
machinist
right,
style.
like an engine block is how
Yes.
you do that. You go around it.
Yes,
right?
you go around.
So I like the principle.
Yeah.
Just basically do 2 first, get it aligned perfect, snug it up, and then do that.
Snug it up and do that. Okay,
You know?
interesting.
Because what happens is when your truck starts to move, it doesn't stop moving until you tighten it again. But if it doesn't move, then you don't have that problem. And we're talking, this principle has been going on for many years on the Mega Ramp. Because when that happened, I was like, hey, Bob, do this, you know? And then a bunch of the other guys, especially the Brazilians, are like, oh, yeah, this is great. This works good. You know?
Have you seen the quick release plates that I think they call it Quick Set or something like that? Or
No.
so they basically made a base plate where you just basically kind of slide your truck into place and it locks. No bolts needed whatsoever.
Huh. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I just saw it on Instagram recently.
I don't know if it's a good truck.
You can use standard trucks on these plates.
So now it's like having riser pads. Now you change your geometry.
change geometry, yeah,
everything.
yeah.
So in a downhill longboard, does that matter? I don't know. I mean,
I'd imagine I haven't seen them. I just
Right.
only seen them on Instagram, or whatever. But I would imagine there's rattle.
well, I applaud anybody with the willingness to try, because if nobody tries, nothing's going to happen.
Exactly.
Right? You know,
There you go.
and the reality is it's easy to be a critic. It's really hard to it's actually easy to have an idea. It's hard to materialize it. Right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
when I was young, I thought it was all about ideas, and like I had them, and I didn't realize it was my ability to execute. And as I grew up in business, I'm like, oh, it's the execute, you know. And the execute is not only just make it, it's material acquisition, it's payables, it's receivables, it's vendor relationships. It's
whole
like,
thing.
how do you get all that to
Multiple
work,
different
right?
Things, yeah.
Kelly, do you want to come look at this? Do you want to get your board back and see the difference in
his
your
board's
truck?
perfect.
No,
You
it's
don't care.
interesting though, because just that one little millimeter.
Could be your piece of madness.
Basically.
Look how there's the one.
So the big thing is balance. Everything's about balance is how I see it.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh.
I just find it fascinating how these little tweaks. You may set up a board that you ride, your whole life, but for
Right.
some reason that board's not working.
But also as a skater, you're doing math every day. You're at a skate spot, you're judging the wind, it's asphalt, you're judging the sun and how soft it is, you're judging pebbles, how fast they got to be when I get to that obstacle.
All these
that
calculations.
before you even get to the obstacle, right?
Right.
And then you're like, I got to get up on that rail or down that ledge, or the mathematical calculations. If you were a robot, it'd be like code from here to Huntington Beach Pier, right?
Right.
And the interesting thing about that doctor that Carl Watson talked to
Yeah.
about the brain firing, right? And how many muscles are involved with that, right? Like in the world of robotics, it's joints, right?
Yes.
It's not even muscles, it's just a joint, right? And the joint has enough power.
Right.
Where really I'm going to fire this muscle in this area combined with that muscle here and this muscle here. Your brain is intense.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The world's best computer.
It is.
Yeah,
no,
straight up.
for sure.
It made the computer, right?
The other day, my computer was like freezing up on me. I'm like, and my brain's like already like 3 steps ahead of my computer. I'm like, why the fuck can't you be as fast as me, motherfucker?
Yeah.
Like getting mad at my computer because it's like giving me a little fucking ball.
Fascinating stuff. I love the board talk because I learned so much. I think all of our
So
viewers.
what's
and
Roger ride? You
listeners-
said you got 4 setups?
Let's choose one. Raj.
Yeah.
No. I have a bunch
his
of
go-to.
I think when you were here, we mentioned magnesium reels.
Yep.
Someone built them for us, whatever, and I
Okay.
tried them.
Yep. So how'd they work?
The slide/grind, awesome. Only downfall is they made the board too stiff.
Yeah.
So if they could make them more flexible, I think they'd be incredible.
But how can you make titanium
I think
more flexible?
you would need probably like slits in them. So I can show you that board now.
We talked about rails. Before we look at your board, we'll talk about rails because we talked about rails that day. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this. Woo, boy.
T-lock rails.
Wait a minute. Oh, you were. Wait a minute.
We all
you,
know about T-locks.
You were.
Yeah,
I don't.
remember
I don't at all.
I do. So
Yeah.
basically,
Wait,
it's
You lock these in, you slide them
yeah.
in.
So you drill a hole through your board. You basically have a T.
Yes.
Jeez.
I thought that was
If you wanna
Jeron's
put 'em on
Manscaped.
your board.
you slide the rail of the T, then you tighten the bolt, and it tightens the rail against it. And that way you have no holes. or
Yeah,
anything
there's
like
no
that.
holes or anything.
Yeah.
But
I remember
how do
that.
you How does a rail
So
stop?
the screw tightens from the top of the board.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Let me
So,
see.
Paul-
Let me see.
So I brought you guys each a set.
I do
it's under your
drywall
grip
screws.
I know.
Okay.
I do
but
drywall
I'm
screws,
just
and
like-
I hammer the
Break 'em
top
off.
top.
Yep.
Works the best for me.
Well, because you're getting 100% penetration through the wood.
But
Yep.
wait a minute,
And it's
Paul.
holding the rail on there and never rattles.
Paul, we need, but this should be flat. Because this is going under your grip tape.
No, it was on top of your grip tape.
This is.
That's on top?
This is made.
But I wanna hide-
This is made in the
was-
80s.
This is made before shorties said we're flat on bolts.
Yeah. So this,
Okay,
But will you-
this is back in the dinosaur days.
But
Back
you
in the
can make
day.
them so that it's flat. Like if I wanted to hide these.
Yeah.
Right.
But then you need to make them like bugle bolts, whatever, so that way they could just countersink into the screw into the wood.
I get you. I get you.
see that?
So the screw.
So if you take that and tighten it into the board,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Wait a minute. What?
So and see the screw's got blue on it because it's got anti-lock
Yeah,
to keep it from vibrating.
Oh, I see.
loose.
I put it on wrong.
So I figured this out at the end of rails when rails were going away in '89. It's like I finally figured it out. It was too late. Rail game was over.
But wait a minute. Are you selling these now? Are you?
No,
this
I just have a
these
box
are
of
just.
them at my shop. and
Oh.
this is from back in the
This,
day.
this is vintage.
This is vintage?
They call it NOS, right? New old stock.
They kind of
Yeah.
warped a little bit. I
Are
don't
you
know if you were storing
okay.
them
Are you still
in a
riding?
microclimate.
This is balance. Okay, we're back to balance.
yeah.
Is the shape balanced?
No.
No, exactly. It's out of balance. So the tension that's in there is continuing to rise to its place.
Right.
But at the same time, it flattens out.
Yeah.
Really
No.
easy.
For
It will
sure.
go
They're just
back.
rails.
We're gonna mount these right here to this table.
There
Oh
you go.
God. Focused. We need another one. I like this technology.
dude.
It's a shame that these never came to market because
Well,
I think.
they
No,
came
they
to
did.
market. I sold them.
No, they did.
But
Oh, you said it was a tail
It
end
was
though.
short-lived.
tail end of rails being accepted, but nobody accepted this idea. Nobody copied it.
Oh.
So with nobody copying it, it was never validated,
Right.
and it went away.
No one ever copied it because street skating became like fuck rails.
Anti-everything.
Every-
Right.
yeah, like
Well, skateboarding became minimal.
get rid of the
minimalist.
lapper, get rid of the fucking plastic altogether.
But
Yep,
if these
definitely.
came out in the height of the rails, these would have been a huge deal.
Yeah, because sex
They could kill
balls
it tomorrow
became
and kill
the
it.
desired way for rails to mount, right? Because they
Now,
wouldn't come off.
it's interesting the way that you have these designed as well, as in you have a almost 90-degree edge over here, but then you have
90 degree?
a 40. Look at that.
That's a 180-degree wrap this way.
But what I'm
with
saying-
a little lip.
But what I'm saying is, if you have your rails on the out, this is more of like a 45-degree angle. You know,
Right. So the outside is it's actually straight here with a radius coming up, probably a 3/8
Exactly.
radius.
Chris, but back then, like
Yes,
rails were made
this-
for grabbing.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was grabbing or sliding. Well, that's what rails were originally made for grabbing.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, when I first made rails, rails were made of wood or urethane.
right.
Okay, and they were made for grabbing. And then Alan Gilfan had an interview in Skateboarder magazine, right? A Z-Flex grab air, which is urethane, 7 inches long. And he told me one day, well, when I rock and roll it grips, I want to slip. And then I made plastic rails because I already made wood ones.
Right.
Right. So these, but I think what I was saying is it's a great feature actually because the slide, it's balanced correctly. You know.
Well, the part of it too is what happened with this is depending on how you ride, you might put the little lip on the inside for grabbing, and then this lip on the outside because you always do backside board slides, and it's easier to slide over stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's how do you dissipate that energy?
And that's a wide rail too.
Yep.
Look at that. So
I like
interesting.
these. I want to take one. I want to hook
Yeah.
these things up.
Thank you for these. Raj is over the moon right now. Look at him. He's in love. He's speechless.
I still like my drywall screws.
These are amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
and you really like the hole that gets worn into your rail, that groove around your drywall screw. You like that too, right?
I don't mind it.
No. Well, if it's your lock-in point, great. But if it's your anti-lock place,
True. It would
the
be,
place
it
you
would, it
don't
would be
wanna
nice
go,
to have no holes there. for
Yeah,
sure.
this
That was
the
is
idea.
definitely.
That'd be. You gotta set one up, Raj. I know.
It's just the whole like drilling holes through your board, make sure everything's lined up properly.
Yeah.
So you can have this cardboard
Yeah.
ruler. They literally came with a cardboard ruler in
Yeah.
the package back then that was a hole pattern. You
wow.
just put it on and drill it, right?
Oh, so it
But the whole
came
thing is, if you drill the hole inconsistent, it really doesn't matter as long as there's one at this end and one
Yes.
at that end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna hold it down.
And it's going to hold it down. So
Yeah.
the whole thing was like,
Right.
it was designed not to have to be precision. But people freaked out about it because they're like, oh, that's too complex.
No, I do see what you're saying, Raj, but I don't think it'd be that.
No, I do like the fact that like there's no holes there or whatever, and you're not.
Right.
Well, I'm curious to
sliding
see
surfaces-
how you guys have fun out there on your curb with these.
Oh, I'm gonna set these up for sure.
I'll set it up too.
Yeah,
I don't even know what I'm doing, but
because I
I'll do
like it. Kelly, they go on the bottom of the board.
Oh
You remember.
no!
I actually worked at a skate shop when those were around,
Mm.
so I've set those things up before.
Oh, really?
It's a process.
Oh, you're right. Because you have to, with these type of screws, you have to pre-drill.
Yes.
Right. You got to
Right.
drill it.
So you're
and then
drilling
you
the
gotta
hole.
line them up
Yeah.
and then slide them on.
The only thing that I would like, and I want to set these up as well, and we got Loctite here, but I might want to try to find the same bolt but flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
go
so I
for
could
it.
put the grip tape over.
Go for it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if
Loctite
I'd
on it.
like looking down at the
I get it.
bolts.
I get it.
Makes sense.
How many bolts per rail? 4?
4.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Definitely.
Give it a shot.
Damn.
So
And
Roger, you
are,
got a board to check out or what?
I've got a couple boards.
are these the urethane you were talking about before?
No, they're UHMW, ultra high molecular weight polyethylene.
But
But like cutting board material is what you would relate to.
Right. But this is the one you were talking about that you were making.
And that's
your-
Yeah, this is what I made as a kid. Yeah.
Right.
Are those the
extruded.
extrusion ones?
Yep.
Yeah.
So these things probably go.
Oh, for sure. Silly,
Yeah,
like,
dude.
Yeah.
silly sticks? No.
So they're silly sticks formula because by
Yeah.
then everything was silicone.
Yeah.
So I would have silicone beads formed in with the plastic
Yeah.
to make it slide even better.
They went, for sure.
But it's a different kind of slide than the hard plastics were ABS, but it won't break down.
Right.
Like these will last,
will
you
last
10
for days,
10
yeah.
boards.
Yeah.
Tim's going to get a kick out of these.
Oh, Tim will
sure.
definitely
Tim
hit
will
these
love
up.
Hell
These
yeah.
smash.
He ain't
Still.
getting us some, though.
You want to see that? You want to see the magnesium reels?
Yeah. Let's see how they wore in.
Bring over the 2 boards you want, though, Raj, so we don't have to keep going back and forth. Now, when Raj first had those, he said that, I mean, they were very sharp, right? They
Yep.
were sharp. You had to break them in like
You had to break them
trucks.
in. It seriously felt like I was like skating trucks.
Yeah.
But once they started sliding, like it was a really controlled slide.
Well,
And it
just
felt really
like your
good.
truck, the grime from the curb, the wax, the paint, like you get this
Yeah,
combination
you hit that
of
certain
everything.
area, whatever. The only thing that like bothered me about them was like how stiff it made my board feel.
Yeah.
And it like if they were more flexible, they'd be incredible.
Right. So
Yeah.
so you could make the board thinner for that, but then you would have the problem that the board would be flexy.
Yeah. Or even just like
Or the impact resistance. So
Yeah.
in the late 70s, they started making boards with beams on them, and the edges were thin, and they had beams in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and they stiffened them up. But basically, the edge broke down so quick that it was no good, right?
Yeah.
You had enough impact resistance left.
What do you think?
Of the titanium rails,
I think you were
Magnesium rails.
Magnesium, yes.
Magnesium.
I thought
Okay.
I think you were a little skeptical.
I was skeptical, but
Yeah.
seeing how ridden they are, that proves it right there. Like you can make it work, and you've made it work, obviously,
Yeah,
right?
they're fun. It definitely took it was a learning curve at first. Cause like when I went to go to slide, you kind of had to push it a little bit.
Let's say
But like once you like learned,
When
you
they
know,
got enough wax and paint.
yeah.
ground
Then
into the pores.
it started working. Like you got comfortable with them. Like it felt incredible. It felt like you could grind, a curb.
right.
But it made my board so stiff that it was like almost like I felt like I was like fighting against my board.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
if it was more flexible, do you think you'd
If my
be
board,
better than-
if my board was more flexible, I think it'd be way more fun.
do you think it'd be better than the original ones that you skate already?
It'd probably be the same, except it'd just be like I have to push harder to slide things.
But it's just fun sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you gotta
totally.
push, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could tell just by putting the board was stiff.
The board
which
the board was way stiffer.
Right.
It just basically the board just became petrified.
Right. And it's part of that thing of a board of like, oh, make it stronger. Well, it wants to give and give back.
Yeah.
So sort of in the 80s, boards were really thick and stiff, right? And they just broke on a jump ramp, right? As we got into the early 90s, it became thinner. By the end of the 90s, when I made Element Feather-like construction, I got it down to this combination of mold and board thickness that gives and gives back, where before it was more like it's just stout,
because you do need that flexibility in the boards for kind of the spring and the I don't know what it would be called, but the
Well, there's action and reaction going on.
Right.
So as you're doing things, you're reacting, right? So as you tension it, it wants to untension.
gotcha,
Right.
Yeah, because in your mind maybe you think, oh, if it's a stiff board, that would be better because you don't have that flex, but in reality, it's completely works against you.
For certain things, it felt great. Well, and then other things, it's like felt like whoa, like I feel robotic on the top of this thing.
So notice that the thickness difference. So your board is thicker in this area, right? Right in between the trucks, and the board became very stiff. So what that shows you is that when you feel your board flexing, your mind thinks your tail's flexing.
No, the whole thing
but
is
really the center of the board flexing up.
Absolutely, yeah.
But your mind feels your tail's flexing.
Right. Interesting.
You know, it's just like how that geometry of the truck, right? The same kind of thing has happened because every action has a reaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So looking at Roger's board, he's got more fingers of flat in the back than the front. You aware of that?
I have a whole quiver of different setups. Like,
Well, Raj, get the setup you're riding right now.
Well, the thing is, like, none of it matters. Like, as far like I'll ride anything. So like, there are definitely certain boards where like, all right, this works for flip tricks, and this works for this.
Right.
And like right now, I have a board that I'm like just trying to like really dial in front side nose.
Get that
sides. So I like modified it.
Because I feel like that's the board you ride the most, right?
I'm literally only riding this board right now to just basically
just for that
for one trick right now
Okay.
because like I know this is gonna work for this trick.
Okay.
Where the Andy Anderson board I have for everything, it's like all around perfect for me.
Gotcha.
But like it's lacking
It's
something as far as
lacking.
other tricks, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what interesting. Andy Anderson's board, every single edge of that board
Has a purpose.
has a purpose.
Yeah.
It's a functioning board for each little trick that he has.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Mind blown
Yeah.
by that.
All right, so this next board is basically a Toy Machine reissue New Deal graphic
Okay.
that you had made.
Okay.
New Deal, PS6. Originally had like a 15-inch wheelbase. I actually drilled the wheelbase back.
Okay.
I know it's not drilled properly. I know the trucks are definitely a little slightly off.
Okay.
But it gave me a bigger nose in order for me to
Just like Ed back in the day.
Yeah, get that leverage to pop over. But then I ran into the problem of like friction, so I actually sanded out a hole right here
Yeah.
to basically get less friction while sliding, and actually it helped quite a bit.
So
And in general, the concave is bellied a little bit this way, right? You know, so you took it also, you made it stable because by doing this, you now have 2 contact points right here versus 1 in the
Yeah,
middle
probably
of the
about
rocks.
3 fingers of fucking.
So it also is more stable in that slide, correct?
Yeah, totally.
So here he grips right over the bolts.
There's
He's got
his-
this mega
yeah.
grip going on.
that's his
there.
.005 grit.
I want my feet to
tape.
stay on my board.
It's obvious.
Wow,
I just want that.
They're not
glue.
going nowhere.
Yeah.
Where'd you find that?
Mob.
Yeah,
Mob course.
makes it. Mob course.
Mob, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mob
I bought a whole
course.
bunch of it from like some skate shop in the middle of nowhere.
Amazing.
Thanks to Prey World.
Did you get enough? It might be over. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's one of those kind of things sometimes.
Yeah.
So you can still check the fingers are flat by looking at the bolt holes. Okay, so we got pretty much 1 3/4 fingers here. Got 2 and maybe an 8. Did you do a 1/4 inch back in the truck
I
holes?
went about a 1/4 inch back, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that was originally 15. I drilled it back about a 1/4.
Right. So your nose now is long.
And I think that nose was originally 7 inches.
Yeah, it's probably 7 1/4 because it's almost 7 1/2 now.
Yeah.
It's pretty big. And then the tail. Six and a half.
Yep.
So then if we look at it from an angle perspective, let's see if my gauge can adhere through the thick grip. I'm not sure if it can.
It might go flying off.
I might need to get a new level of magnetization for this stuff.
Heavy duty.
It doesn't even want to zero out. Oh, there it goes.
Other. Hey.
Okay, it's holding. So you're 35.9 at this end. Okay.
35.9.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like the nose is a lot. So
with,
maybe
with
the
tensors. Okay. So the
35.9.
same board with indies would be like 34.9 or something.
Gotcha. So this is probably going to be 33.2.
I think tensors actually copy the geometry of the indies.
They're more where the axle sits is more like a Thunder Venture.
Really?
Or originally, I haven't analyzed them lately.
Yeah. Because Eric Sentian designed these ones, and he said it was like trying to like get like a indie
You're close.
feel to them.
Yeah, 33.1. So here you're much less
Ooh,
because
close,
of the length,
Chris.
right?
I'm getting the hang of it.
Now, looking at your wheels, you can see your back wheels and barely see your front wheel. So when I push on the edge here, this is really hard to get this one to go, right? You know?
I'm literally not trying to flip the board at all. I'm just
Right.
trying to like front nose as far as I can, and then pop over like a 6-inch wide curb.
Okay.
So that's why like I drilled the holes in the nose back,
Are you?
removed the fucking the center like layer there,
Yeah.
in order to have less friction or whatever. My problem is getting over the curb right now, and I'm wondering if it's like I need a steeper nose
Are you training over like the actual like the square curb or the round one?
Square curb.
Wow, that's gnarly.
Yeah.
That's super hard to do.
Yeah. So like,
So you're ollieing over it.
so I'm trying to like front nose and then kind of nollie over and land
Right.
straight.
Front nose and just nollie over it.
Yes.
Right.
But I like, there's about 6 inches of surface on the top of the curb. That's
To
why I
get
drilled
over.
it back. So my toes,
So you can
Hang
get
off
this
the
over
other
it.
end.
I need to hang my toes at the very edge of the board in order to get the leverage over. For some reason, it's popping straight up, but not over.
Well, maybe we need to make you some slick bottom boards for that.
I was wondering if it's like a steeper nose might help.
Well, the one thing I would say is if you make the nose steeper and you're trying to do this, now you're going to be over here. So, but maybe,
Yeah, the thing is, I want
maybe
to be over there in order to get over on top of the curb.
But really, you want to keep this here, and you want to get your energy over, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the length is more in reaching over that long curb, the wide curb.
I don't think you need a longer nose. I think you need just to find that.
It's like drilling it back and then drilling the hole has helped tremendously as far as slide and as far as leverage is like popping.
Right.
Because before I was riding it as stock.
And you're nollieing into it?
No,
You're ollieing
I'm
it.
slapping into a frontside nose slide.
Nose slide.
And then I'm trying to nollie over it.
Right.
But before I drilled it back, I would like seriously, I would slide probably about 6 feet. And then when I nollie, it'd go straight upward.
Okay, so just try it backwards tomorrow.
You think going off the tail?
Just try it backwards. The math, if what you're saying is right, you're not going to have the surface area, but you're going to have the leverage. So just try that and see if the leverage works. And if so, then it's combining the attributes together to make the right thing.
Why the tail though? Just because it's a
Because
more
the angle was so high. Okay, the math told me the tail.
Oh,
So the tail angle on that one is higher than the nose?
By a long shot.
Yeah,
It
it's-
was
yeah.
1.5 degrees.
yeah.
Which is huge. Normally I have a variance because we're not drilled back like that. 0.3, 0.5.
Yeah, because the higher the angle of the thing you're sliding on, which would be the nose or tail,
Right.
you get that no matter what, you're going to get that leverage
Right.
on the curb
So
because
what's-
you're already it's the steepness of the board is determining where it lies on the slide, what angle it is on the slide.
Right. So it's a combination of all the things, but ultimately the flatter part here is having less reaction. This, with the bolt holes being close, is going to have more reaction. You tried the trick before you drilled it back?
Yeah.
I assume?
I did.
Did you try the trick gouged out before you drilled it back?
What do you mean gouged out? Oh, like with the hole?
Right. No, the nose.
Yeah, yeah. And
well.
it was just basically so much friction there that I couldn't slide
Right,
far.
but which, did you do the gouge after you moved the truck holes?
Yeah.
Okay. And
So,
that's because you had a huge flat spot there, which is why your friction increased.
So when I originally tried to do the front nose pop over, I was doing it at the 15-inch wheelbase, whatever, no gouge, and it wouldn't. The slide wasn't consistent at all. I couldn't slide very far at all. I drilled it back. It got better. I now had more. I had more surface area on the slide, and I felt I was a little more comfortable sitting on it on the curb. But I was still, every time I tried to pop, I would just go straight up in the air, not up and
Over.
the.
So we have a
transfer.
goal here.
It's
We're
transferring.
giving up on the get Chris on the stage hashtag,
Yeah.
and we're going the get Roger over the curb
Yeah.
hashtag.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
I'm with it.
Yeah.
Get Roger
I'm with
over
it.
the curb.
Yeah, get Roger over the curb.
Working on it. I'm almost there. I've
No,
gone
but-
it over a couple of times,
but see,
like
Paul-
it's not consistent at all.
This is the type of stuff that I'm talking about, though. Every time I come over here, he's got some weird thing going on with his boards, his quiver. Not all the time, but
No,
you
but
know,
I'm trying to
it's-
problem solve
Right.
what I'm working on at the
Right.
time, you know?
Yeah.
So it sounds
I
like
applaud it. The willingness to try is a start.
Yeah.
So how did you gouge, by the way?
I basically use my grinder with a sanding disc wheel and just,
grinder?
Wow.
Yeah.
and just
Damn.
got rid of a layer. And it helped. I slide further now because there's less surface area there.
Right.
So
Yeah, but also because you abraded the wood and the
Mm-hmm.
wax from your curb is now penetrated your wood
Yeah.
and it's become waxified.
Yeah. But the problem though is that the curves we skate though, it's at the beach and the sand.
Right.
The sand is constantly
Abrasive.
turning it into grip tape.
Yeah.
And we seriously scrape it every like couple of hours in order to keep it sliding
Okay.
consistently.
Yeah, the sand's just embedded in the wax.
Right.
Yeah.
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 It's fascinating, man. So, Raj, you try your tail tomorrow, and I guarantee you'll probably do it first try.
I can't guarantee it, but it doesn't tell you that leverage. Because if you tell me, I'll make you a board that works for it. Like if that gives you an answer, you're like, I'm feeling it.
So with the
right?
curb, whatever, like I found, like with normal nose slides, if I have like a little bit of like of the nose hanging over the edge, I can pop over no problem. If it's the same length of the curb, it is so difficult to pop over because I don't have that leverage to pop over.
Let me say yardstick. So here's the example. Here's his problem. When he's trying to get over the curb and it's too short, he can do nothing. He hangs it over.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. But the thing is the way that, you slide on a curb and you're going to pop out or flip out. It's all about that angle of that leverage, right? The only difference is he's trying to go up and over, but if he's still got that pop as if it was a normal ledge,
right?
So he could do it.
So I'll
I'll
make the board with a steeper nose on it. Okay, a steeper, longer.
That's
nose,
what I was wondering.
And
like
the steeper leverage.
That's exactly what I was
combined
wondering.
will help with that.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was wondering. Like, do I need a steeper nose?
So it's whether a mold is symmetrical or not. But my most common mold at my factory is not symmetrical.
Okay.
Then the last 3 inches of the nose is 4 degrees steeper than the tail.
Interesting.
Okay.
Right.
And that's a mold I built in '98 that was known as the Element Featherlight mold.
Yeah.
And in that era when I made it, I was working with Chris Markovich and doing development work and making a board thinner and meeting his needs, and he had to have more concave. And everybody kept on telling me, I want my nose taller. So I just made it taller.
And that was it.
So we make that nose taller, we'll get you over the curb.
There we go.
Yeah. I think that's all I really need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get Roger over the curb.
Get him over the curb.
Hashtag get Roger the curb.
Seriously.
Because it makes sense, though. If your board's like this, right?
Right.
You're going to have, this is the only thing you have to work with. But if
Yeah.
your board's steeper, if your nose is steeper, you're
Right.
going to have more.
So if you have 5 degrees less on this end to move, you're going to be 5 degrees closer to your goal already.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And the issue is really right when you get to that point where your body weight is on top
It's
of
getting
the
my
edge of the
shoulder
curve.
and head over the curb.
Right. You
Yeah.
have to get your body weight over or it doesn't work.
Yep.
It's a dirty ass board.
What's up with that? Grimy beach?
Grimy beach.
Wax for days.
Feel more comfortable now, Raj.
No, it kind of like answers my own. I already knew. I kind of feel like I needed like a steeper nose in order to make this happen.
Right. But by drilling it back, you got the distance, but not a steeper nose.
I got the
less
leverage, but now I don't have the torque in a way
Right.
to pull
Yeah,
over.
I would
you know?
agree.
Yeah.
That's a good way to look
Need
at it.
that torque.
Need a torque,
Got to
man.
torque that thing.
Torque it. No, it's interesting. I mean, as a skateboarder, I don't think I would just try to figure out what was wrong with myself,
Yeah.
rather than and
The
like getting
board.
the trick, rather than adjusting my whole board
Modifying
for
it. Yeah.
that one trick.
So I also ride that Andy Anderson board, which is probably the most perfect board I've ever ridden in my life. It's insane how well balanced this thing is.
Cool.
But never had the leverage in order to pop over the curb the way I want to. That's why I started riding that one and drilled it back. But one thing about the Andy Anderson board is the flight construction.
Yep.
By removing the cross ply and using just carbon fiber.
Yep. It's not carbon fiber. It's just fiberglass.
It's fiberglass. It's incredible though.
Yeah.
Like it really is incredible. Like, and the funny thing is about those boards, I've noticed, like I've ridden like VX and I've ridden like a lot of the impact stuff. I don't get the splinters that I get from those other boards,
Yeah.
which is bizarre to me because it's like kind of the same fucking material.
Splinters,
But then again, it's
friction cracks.
No, it's like splinters from the fiberglass.
the secret on that board is the resin, and George understands resins.
he
He
got
makes wheels.
Yeah.
That's a reality. He makes urethane, right?
Yeah.
He understands. He's a chemist. I'm a mechanical dude. I'm not a chemist at all.
Yeah.
You show me a chemistry chart, I'm like, huh, what? What's that mean?
Let me ask you a question real quick.
It's like you looking at the ruler and try to get 5/8 or something.
yeah. Are you? I don't want to interrupt. Were you?
Oh no, I'm just basically saying like that's kind of like why I started riding that board.
Right.
But like this board for me, like I've been skating for
Is that the mini one?
this is the small one, yeah.
Small one.
But I've been skating since like 1985, 86, whatever. This is probably the best skateboard I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like
That's great.
a long time. And it's like as far as like being a well balanced board and where tricks feel, because I'll just throw my board down, just skate it symmetrical, just kind of like Chris does, and This thing has just been insane.
Andy's rad. There's no doubt about it. He
Yeah.
came and skated that downhill run with us a couple weeks ago.
Amazing.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yeah.
He's a great kid.
Yeah.
Great
He's
kid. Very
awesome.
talented, man. Let me ask you a question about friction cracks. Big thing back in the day, right? Remember, you'd always look at your board,
Stress
be like,
cracks,
"Oh, look at all these
stress
friction
Stress
Yeah.
cracks.
stress." We called them friction cracks. You know, that's what we called them. But I don't see those as much anymore. Why?
So part of that could be in the manufacturing of a board. If you're riding a board that's hot pressed, they drove all the moisture out of it.
Okay.
And it's just not absorbing moisture where you're not putting it. So really the environment it's in. If you leave a board outside, you're gonna go like, it was brand new and you live it in the front yard and the sun baked on it. You check it in a month, you go, it's stress cracked. I didn't even ride it. It's already got a stress
But
crack.
just try it
But
out.
the sun and the moisture,
Try it out, yeah.
action, reaction.
So
right?
you're telling me that I treated my boards worse back in the day than I treat them now because I don't see
I'm
I
sure
don't see
that.
fresh stress fractures anymore.
So part
I don't
of
see them.
Part of stress cracks is how a board's
That's true,
built.
though.
So let me see your board.
But it could also be manufacturing and just basically, what is it? Like just temperature control
Right.
Well, Jeron, remember back in the day?
Yeah.
and moisture control.
So I forgot to bring my
like
calipers.
The lacquer or whatever the case is. Something's
Right,
something
the
safe
paint or
in this.
the whatever.
Yeah.
The paint is a very important part. If you don't seal it and clear coat it right, so the first coat of paint soaks into the wood.
Yeah.
So there's all these pores. Imagine tubes, right? And the paint soaking in there.
Sure.
And then you sand the rough ends off, and the gloss coat goes over it, right? So this has a really nice paint job on it. The one thing I would say is since graphics have gone to heat transfer, the ink is put on to the transfer and then put on the board. And what happens is it casts the paint and the ink off of the board, and you get a much more sheen on the bottom. Well, that action of casting that is taking that the materials there and it's pushing them into the lows of the board, right? And it's evening it out. Where before with ink and shrink and the area that wasn't exposed, it's got more highs and lows. Now this would be with a microscope. You can't
Yeah,
even
yeah, of
tell
course,
it
of
otherwise,
course,
right?
right.
But it's just like the nano tubes from the edge. You can see them because they're dark there.
Yep.
Right. Like there's things happening all the time you can't see.
Right.
So the stress crack is very much part of the environment.
Uh-oh.
Notice.
That's a bushings,
about
man.
that.
I always blame
You're-
it on the bushings.
You need a controlled climate there, buddy.
Yeah. It's hard no matter what, but see, by the time you put your body weight on it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, this is like the perfect board for me. You know what I mean? Like
If it's working, that's what matters right there.
That's what it is. And it's funny because the twin paddle boards, you know, just being able to throw it down any which way is just one less thing for your brain to process. Remember we were talking about the processing power of your brain?
Yeah.
And just by eliminating that little one thing,
Right.
it's just it's one thing less in the equation that your brain is, which I love.
Right. That is if your trucks are tight and the same.
Which
Yes,
which
exactly.
Your
yeah.
wheels are either tight or not tight, rattle, not rattle on each
right
end of the board.
which was the whole thing. I had to, you know, from the very beginning set up a Christmas complete to actually break in those trucks
Right.
exactly the same. So, you know, the trucks have the same exact, you know, grind marks
Right.
and everything. I skated almost, even the marks here almost exactly,
Yeah.
maybe a little different, but depending.
looking close, very
yeah,
close.
looking close. I love it though, man. There's something about it, you know, the twin paddle. Yeah, love it, man. Available on 9club.com very soon.
Nice.
I had to plug it.
Get one.
All good. All good.
Is there anything that you want to touch on? Because listen, we could talk for 4, 5, 8 hours here. We'd love to have you back
I
again
wonder
and
what's
again
in
and
the
again.
box.
Oh yeah, there's something in the box there.
Oh.
Got a couple
What's
boxes
in the,
over here.
what's in the? You got a couple box? Uh-oh. This is what I love about having guests back in, man. And we got presents.
I brought you a mic stand.
Oh, look at
That
Gee,
is
what?
amazing. I knew that you made this board, but that is
Wow.
That's
right there.
incredible.
That's fucking
Damn,
amazing.
that's tight.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We had Toy Box Monster. He made one for Jeron as well.
That's what triggered it.
Yeah.
Because we just built these boards, and I knew there were a couple blems, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go grab them. I'll make something out of them."
So sick.
That's
Thank you
so
for doing that,
awesome.
dude.
That's
amazing,
Yeah.
bro.
So rad.
I love the naked edge. of the board.
Well,
Right? We usually don't see
sealed-
it like that.
I sealed it and sanded it.
But you know what I mean? The naked edge. It's like, we see it all.
Yeah, you see it.
yeah.
all nice and
Right.
finished.
You see it all round here
I
and
like that
finished, yeah.
naked edge, bro.
That's fucking rad, man. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
the contrast when you have something production finished and then rough texture.
I love it.
Always cool.
I love it, man. How did you put that? You put glue on there or some nail?
I just screwed it in.
Okay.
The screws in the bottom.
That's so sick.
That board did really well, man. That's for sure.
Yeah, we just
Amazing.
couldn't make them fast enough. And they gave us
Yeah.
the order was right when COVID hit. And they're like, we want them in 3 months. Like, we'll try. We're still trying to figure out how to get the factory rolling. And it's like,
Yeah.
the reality
In the
is
midst of it.
we got a year's worth of work in a couple months.
Wow.
That's
And
the reality.
they're very
bro.
thankful, and I as well.
Did any companies offer you a little extra, like to make sure their product get done ahead
people
of
were
time?
trying to do that, but that's not my mode.
Yeah.
My mode is, hey, you got a PO in place and your order's in line, and
That's it.
I couldn't have
We'll get it
people
done when
in
it's
line.
done.
People are like, I'll prepay you for 20,000 boards in March, and it's like, I can't do it. I can't go bump my customers out.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, it's honest business, man. I would have been taking that money, put it in my Swiss account.
Yeah, well, you got to make the thing say. They don't just give you money; they say you got to give us something back.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it was just a perk.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Some gifts here, man.
I know.
A
love
little
this.
dusty because my shop.
Oh, it's
Sorry
all
about
good.
that.
I like to polish it up.
We still like the parking block and the stage and everything you built.
Yeah, we were gonna put them on, but we had these mics like Loctited the hell into
Yeah.
these fucking, because they keep people well, especially me. I had to keep adjusting.
I'm constantly
enough.
touching this thing.
Yeah.
I thought this would be a mic blocker, so I knew it was
It
a little.
is.
I knew it was a little tall for the perspective, but
Yeah,
I
it's-
thought it was.
this
It's
is
still
pretty sick
It will still
regardless.
sit somewhere okay, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh, for
It's
sure.
beautiful. Regardless.
That's rad.
absolutely, man. Oh, he's climbing into the. Watch the headphones.
He's got a
this,
board
bro.
box over there.
What do you got in there? Look at that, guys. Yeah, put that right here.
Oh, that thing looks heavy.
It's got the 5 fingers of flat.
Nice.
Whoa!
Here we go.
Look at this, bro.
Maybe on a longboard you might get 5 fingers.
Can we get a 9 fingers of flat?
Yep.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's a lot of boards right there.
Okay.
I like
Okay,
that.
so I got 2 different shapes. So
What do we got?
do you guys know who Jose Cerda is?
yeah.
Yeah.
So Jose runs my factory with me, and he's a big fan of the show, and he's watching it all the time. He's like, those guys are curb skating like crazy. And Jose on Saturdays, him and his buddies cruise all over LA and hit up curbs. and
Amazing.
that's what he does every Saturday.
No
right?
way.
And
Jose, come skate the curves with us.
I know.
let him know when you're doing it.
Usually
And Jen will-
Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Not Saturdays.
So he wanted to make these shapes for you guys because he was like, they're into curbs. These are shaped boards that let you have the leverage on the edge and that connect point when your board's lipping.
Okay.
Whether you're using a rail or not, and the idealism of that, right?
Wow.
So there's 2 different shapes here.
Okay.
One's 8.5.
Ooh.
Okay.
Beautiful.
And one is 8 3/4.
8 3/4.
I think they're both short wheelbase, I think. Okay, so that one was 14 1/4. That one wasn't short. This is a short
You got a 7.5 inch nose
one.
over there.
Wheelbase.
A little short.
And
wait a minute.
so
So
they-
8.5.
this is 8 3/4.
Let me see that. Can I see that blue one?
So they were just some graphics we had from a test
Yeah.
for Ray's printing process at some point. They were sitting around.
Yeah.
Raj, you might
True
like
among
this
you.
shape, bro.
Yeah, definitely.
Come check it.
Yeah.
You might like this shape, man.
But anyways, you can ride a couple and you can give a couple away to your people.
Yeah.
They love your show.
Thank you.
We don't
Thank
normally
you.
put out skateboards with PS6 brand name on
Right.
it. In general, I consider myself to be like the Intel inside the Dell computer. Dell talks all the Dell, right?
Sure.
But the reality is Intel's the technology and the substance. Well, that's
Right.
what PS6 is.
Right.
you know?
Okay.
Right.
Is I'm the technology, I'm the substance. But the brands, the hype, the hip, the cool, the generational relevance, this is what we want to make, this is what we want to stand for.
So rare.
Kind of thing. Rare.
Rare.
Very rare.
Okay, we'll have to keep it.
This is very similar to what I'm riding now.
Yeah, that was just to
That's
say
what I
your
said. I
shape.
think
Yeah,
you
this
like
is very
it.
similar to that Ed Templeton board.
It's the same
So
mold.
rad.
Yeah,
I
for
would
sure.
tell you that it's the same mold. So part of this was also mold in that context, because he'd made these boards when we were testing some stuff a couple years ago for all of his buddies.
Love the
and they were all
embossing, by
just
the way.
like,
Yeah, I
"Love
love
it."
the embossing.
Yeah, it's this subtle thing of that, right?
Yeah.
So that emboss is actually ink.
It's just gone over twice, huh?
Ink. A
Yeah.
special screen, special ink.
Nice.
Just like on the puffy ink on your. shirt, right?
Yeah,
much, yeah.
Raised
you could
ink.
think of it that way. You could think of it that way.
Thank you for
Yeah,
these.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. Not only are they special for slappies and curbs, they're also rare with the PS sticks. True craftsmanship skateboard manufacturing. Look at that.
These are sick.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yes, thank you so much, dude.
gonna-
It's a good cruiser board for me.
Straight up.
Take the cruiser board, put your rails on it, and start slapping
There
some
you
curves.
go.
All right.
Kylie,
That's the
come
idea,
on.
right?
All right, I'm doing it.
Recruitment
This
right
8.5 is pretty sick too. I'd run
The
I like that
8.5,
one.
yeah.
I like that one.
Like it almost doesn't look 8.5.
Well, that
you know
that,
what I mean?
That was Jose's issue. He wanted to point out and share was that when you have a shaped board, your width is really about where your wheels are.
Right.
And what happens is when I talked about that distance of your wheels to the edge, well, now you got a bigger lever here to press on.
Right.
The further it hangs over, the easier it is to go push that. Woo!
push that
See?
microphone out of the way.
The easier it is to push it over.
So interesting. So that's 8.5. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it doesn't look
No, it doesn't. Based on that
like an
maps, too.
8.5 board scares me. You know what I'm saying? I look at it, I'm like, that's a lot of board. But this does not look like that.
It's because it tapers.
So
And it's-
a good way to tell taper on something is if you imagine this was a door at your house, you would go up against a door and go look at that, and that thing doesn't touch. It's rounded the whole way, right? So I would have guys in the shop, and I'm sort of showing them where that taper starts from the truck holes. Just walk up to the door and look at it, right?
Yeah.
Because you have light coming from the other side. It makes it really easy to judge.
Yeah.
Right.
But this one's 8 3/4, right? So this
Yeah.
one doesn't have as much round to it because it's 8.5. You know,
I love it.
but the width in this area is very similar.
Thank you for these.
Yeah.
It's incredible. We
I'll
got
skate all of them.
we almost got you got trucks and wheels in there. We almost got complete setup. We almost got complete setup.
Should we do a raffle?
Yeah, do a raffle with them. I mean, share a couple of them if you're
No.
enthusiast. That's the raddest thing about what 9 Club is. It's about enthusiasts appreciating skateboarding.
Well,
So true, though.
we're all, you know, I mean, Jeron actually came up with the tagline because he says it, but skaters supporting skaters.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's all about, man.
Definitely.
And
It's been my tagline from day one, right?
see, there you go.
You know, it's like back then it was like skater-owned company. What's that? It's like,
But it's so rad and relevant these days, you know.
Right.
If
Hell
there's
yeah.
a skater-owned company, man, I back it even
Yeah.
more so. You know,
Yeah.
especially this industry's small, you know, and people try to come and infiltrate.
Everyone
like,
knows everyone.
You know,
Right.
exactly. You know, so you
Yeah.
stick to your roots.
Anything else we can add to this?
Well, I thought I could bring some more stuff, but I was like, I could just bring a truckload of stuff.
Yeah.
You just
Well,
come to the workshop.
Paul,
for a
this
day.
is
I did have an idea, but I didn't bring it because it was too much stuff. You saw me at Do Tour when I was doing my Creative Skate booth and sort of history of skateboarding, right? And I have this whole program that teaches how the roller skate, how we got to the skateboard we are today. Did you realize the roller skate's not from California?
So Michigan, right?
Nebraska.
Chicago.
Chicago.
Litchfield, Illinois, roller derby.
Yeah.
Roller
Oh,
derby made
roller
the world's
derby.
first commercial skateboard in 1959 from Illinois. And then they sold them in roller rinks around the country.
Wow.
Right? Now, people were making their own skateboards. That's why they started to make it, right? People were
Right.
disassembling their roller skates.
Right.
And then Chicago Trucks made the trucks that were on a lot of the boards in the first half of the 70s because Chicago Trucks said, well, they're taking our roller skates apart. Let's just make them their own truck.
Yep.
And that became really the first skateboard truck.
Amazing.
You know, but then the real skateboard specific truck was actually Tracker, and that was like 75.
I had some trackers.
Yeah.
Definitely in like I think 88.
Ultralights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it
Plastic
just happened like it was in like Back to the Future, like he
crate
pulled
comes
off the
apart.
crate. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I
I
thought,
thought
too.
that's what. Yeah, like my whole life.
So I built myself one of those crates 5 years ago, and I found out really quick what crate bite was when I went to tournament.
Crate
Oh, my
bite.
goodness.
Yeah, well, the reality is that we know wheel bite very well, but
Yeah.
and the story is the crate broke off. Well, why did the crate break off? Because of crate bite,
Crate bite.
leverage, right?
Leverage your wheels and you
Had
edge
to
your
get
board.
home. Had to get home. Just throw the board, right?
Crate
You
gate.
know? But the crazy thing is, in the crate era of crate scooter, there's photos for 40 years before we had a
sure,
skateboard
yeah.
of those
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Right.
The quad roller skate was actually patented by a furniture maker in New York City in like 1887 or something like that.
It's so
Way
crazy.
back then. So it took that many years to get a skateboard out of that, right?
Wow.
There was some actually inline quad wheel like inline skates in Europe already then.
It's fascinating stuff, man. And just like you said, you could bring up a truckload here. We'll just schedule you in right now for the next stop and chat.
Yeah,
How
next
about
week.
that?
Or
next week?
Yeah, next week.
Free?
Keep it going.
No, because
2
this
weeks
is
in a
like,
row. Let's go.
No, because we can literally sit here for 6-7 hours easily, right?
doubt.
Just talking about this stuff, and so the beauty of it is you can come back anytime you want.
Or we
and
can take
keep
a special
talking.
trip to the workshop. Take a
That's-
special trip. and
yes.
Really like
Next
That
week,
would
talk
be
about
awesome.
moisture content.
you know.
That would be super rad.
As we talked about before, just collect the questions from your consumers, right? You're like, hey, they want to know this.
Totally.
What do you guys want to know? You know, I used to do that technically speaking in Transworld in the 80s where people would write in, I want to know about a ramp. Why do trucks turn?
And I think you answered a lot of them. I mean, if anybody here that's watching this now hasn't seen your episode 9 Club, go
watch
back and watch it because
Yeah.
there's so much information from rails,
Yeah.
Schmitt stick, all the way up till present time. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So if you like nanotubes, you want to understand
Yeah.
nanotubes better. I did something with the guys at Braille Skate last summer where I made skateboards with nanotubes wrong.
Wait a minute.
How did it work?
But how does that?
Not very good.
No.
Wait a minute.
But the reactions on their faces and the surprises were fabulous.
Explain these wrong nanotubes. How do you make nanotubes wrong?
You put them in the wrong way.
You put 5 layers across,
Okay.
and 2 layers long,
What
or
was?
7 layers across and none long.
Have you ever done that before?
No,
what
never
was the
done it.
result?
It didn't work.
What do you mean it didn't-
break?
yeah, did it
Did
just
it just break
break?
right away, or?
Well, you watch it and find out.
Oh gosh.
Right? Watch it and find
That's
out.
scoop.
But it's interesting stuff. But the reality is that the guys didn't really know. They were blind to it, right? So it's like I just had them ride it, and the look and expression on their face
Looked
would
like a
either
normal
it worked
skateboard.
right or not right.
Right.
It was a little bit of a con game, right?
Yeah.
And I took
You
them.
see him having a hard time with it.
Yeah, and I took them through class and taught them how nanotubes worked and how to break things, and I illustrated it through.
I mean,
screen.
I had never even heard of a nanotube until you came on the show.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. And
they're in everything that grows.
do I have
Just make 'em.
nanotubes in me?
Yeah, your blood vessels, right? They're almost like nanotubes. Almost like.
So, Paul, do you think it's better to have a thicker vertical ply than like a thinner horizontal ply? You know what I mean?
Right. So it's a vertical
So
plies are-
if it's thicker vertically, your nanotubes would probably be bigger.
well, the problem they're not bigger. They're just your orientation,
but
right?
there's more
so
of them or
the
whatever.
problem is with the thicker the core. If you make the core thicker, you get to a point where you can't get the concave to hold in the mold anymore. So you got to have a balance of enough long grain and cross grain to hold it in place.
Is there like a sweet spot for?
There was a sweet spot when I
Layers?
made vertical core boards before, for sure.
Yeah.
And that was 80,000 spaces, 41,000 crosses.
Was that the
with
V-ply?
160,000 core. Last that I made was a black label one, but yeah, pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Who came up with the veneers idea? Do we know?
The layering of a 7-ply skateboard happened before me. So realize that. It was already there. It started around 77. Boards were going from solid wood. And Watson Laminates and maybe Taylor and Dykema both in San Diego made stuff, but also Willie Winkle in Canada was making stuff. And there's a debate who was really first. I don't really know what to say.
Okay. Either Willie Winkle or these other guys.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not really sure, but it's just like trying to save a plastic rail, right? As much as I made a plastic rail in Florida, and McGill was like, "Oh no!" When Stacy saw him at the trade show, he said, "Don't ride those. We'll make our own."
Okay.
We've got skeletons around here.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the reality is that someone on this coast could be doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
It's all up for debate.
Right. It's up
Yeah.
for debate. You don't really know. You know?
So, what'd you say? Late 70s, early
So
mid?
77 is when 7-ply construction started.
Okay.
But the orientation changed over time because sometimes they would have 3 cross, 4 long. They were all the same thickness. So the cross grain orientation was sort of 40 to 30 thousandths in the 70s, 30 thousandths in the 80s going cross. In the early 90s, Chuck Hulse pushed it to 25 across. And then in the late 90s, I pushed it to 20% across. Now, some people still build boards at 25%. Some are 23, some are 27 because they'll get all their veneers one thickness or whatever principle they work by, right?
So, it was just pretty much making these boards and trial and error as they went along up until current times, I guess. Or when did it actually stick? Like
As far as the mold and construction, I'd say late 90s it stuck.
Late 90s.
Really, since late 90s, since I'm running the same mold for the majority of what I build, it really hasn't changed much. Glues have gotten better.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Processing's gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and processing is a huge thing in product consistency and quality and all that.
Have any brands brought you any sort of crazy marketing ideas to add to your boards to make their boards stronger? What like some sort of gimmick? Where you're like,
the
that's-
market isn't in a mode where they want to do that right now. You know, like Powell's doing what they're doing because they want to do it, right? You know, and that's the whole thing. If the brand wants to do it, so. But that's the challenge of really wanting to.
But if a
right?
brand came to you like, we want to have the entire center layer just be $100 bills, like we just be like, what are you fucking talking about?
Yeah, well, they got to pay for that. So the novelty or
Literally.
the fun of making one
Yeah.
versus the reality of business, right? It has to be a business proposition that works.
Yeah.
That's why nobody copied turbines. It wasn't a business proposition that worked. It was
Yeah.
a fabulous wheel for riding a vert ramp,
They sounded amazing.
which is what it was built
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
But it was not a business
Nobody
proposition.
copied them.
Yeah, nobody copied
Yeah.
it.
I love that, man. No, if you don't get copied, then you're not doing a good job.
Yeah, it's so hard because as a creative,
Pretty
there's
much.
this like protectionism, like I want to protect my baby, but really your best thing is people want to follow you. If you made it and you stayed in your closet with it and nobody knew, what would it matter?
Right, right.
It could have been the best idea that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's that whole execution side of it, you know?
if vert skating was as big as street skating, do you think turbines would be killing it right now?
Probably not because it cost too much money to make. You know, again, I made them because I wanted to make them,
Yeah.
not because it was a business proposition.
Yeah.
But it is something that people that had them and knew them were like, whoa, you know, that's a rad one.
Yeah, they were sick.
How much would those cost in the market these days?
I feel like they're like $10, $20 more than a normal set of wheels,
Yeah,
right?
they were a lot then, and now they would be way more.
Yeah.
So they had an extruded aluminum hub, and you look through them, and they had holes inside of them.
And the holes
And
were for.
lightness.
Yeah.
Air is lighter than aluminum. It's lighter than urethane too.
So the sound was a byproduct of what you did. You weren't going for that sound.
No, sound was a byproduct.
Yeah.
But basically, the hub, what happens is the urethane, when you hear about rebound in a wheel, it goes from the surface in, it bounces off the bearings, and part of it gets lost where there isn't a bearing to bounce off of, right?
Okay.
These had a metal hub that was the width of the riding surface of the bearings, the riding surface of the wheel. The energy would bounce in and bounce out. And then it was a shorter distance because of the hub.
The urethane like surrounding it was only like
Quarter inch, 5/16 maybe.
So you're making these aluminum hubs that they have to mold the wheel around, and
Right.
so it's a big process.
And the hub was a high precision.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Very gotcha.
Like, it can't be 1,000ths off. A bearing won't go in.
You have any of those in the box?
I got
Try
a couple
those,
at the
man.
shop, but not many. I wish I would have, like a lot of things, I wish I would have saved a box of
I
those or a
know,
case
right,
of these.
dude.
Or,
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
dude, thank you for these rails.
But for some reason, I got a case of those.
I
Thanks
love
for the boards.
Thank
Yeah.
you for
Yeah.
Perfect
everything.
timing, man.
Listen, Paul, we're not done with you, bro.
Yeah.
You need to come back again and again because I
Well,
think
you guys got to come to the shop or just
I mean-
Yeah, I
come,
think
that'd
come
be
do
great.
Create-A-Skate. So
That's-
my
oh.
whole Create-A-Skate program, you know,
Yeah.
the DIY maker, make it
When's it?
happen,
What
you
day?
know. I'm pretty busy this week.
Like, do you have
Coming
a,
up
do you
later.
have a
this month.
skating
Oh, Kelly's
crate?
going to be gone. We'll do it while Kelly's gone.
okay,
Calendar
perfect.
this out. you know?
No, I want to go.
I just need Chris there.
That's a given. We'll definitely create a skate. But I'm just saying, like, we love talking to you, and we could talk forever. And you need to come back.
Yeah, so I
again
think
and again.
if you curate
you know?
some questions, you know, from you guys out there, what are your
Yeah.
questions? What do you want answered? You know, because that's what makes it engaging, right? It's the thing that you weren't thinking about asking.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I mean, this conversation leads to other conversations and more questions
Oh, yeah.
and
Right.
more comments, and that's a beautiful thing. You know,
Never
because there's
ends.
no way, even if we talk for 8 hours, we could never cover everything.
Right.
Right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we do it in little
You
pieces.
didn't ask him about this.
Yeah, it always happens, but you know, we do it in little pieces, man.
Yeah.
We do it, and man, I
Next
love
time,
it, man.
next time we'll get more questions.
I'll at least give you a plausible answer.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that my perception is mine, and I have a good one, I feel. But
Sure.
also, I always challenge myself not to be hindered by experience, because you see people with so much experience they can't learn anything, right?
Yep.
Like I love learning things.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
you know, so that's part of that analytical thing, right? Like I'm analyzing it, right?
Right.
And to me, it's like a puzzle. I'm trying to figure out a puzzle, right? And it's like, I can't even see that half a finger puzzle you're talking about. Like, well, I see it's right there, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I
And
can
it's
see
an ever-changing puzzle.
ever changing, ever changing.
It's never going to be solved.
No.
You can't solve this puzzle. There's a missing piece that run under the fucking couch.
But it can be solved for a person.
Yes.
Okay.
For
So
maybe actually not even their whole career, though. It could be at that point in time.
it depends
right?
about time and place, right? So the other day I did a post. Nigel started his new brand,
Yeah.
right? And I did a post of him in 2017 at a skate park. We just finished development on his own personal concave. We had him skate both boards. We did scientific analysis of repeatability of tricks, had it all documented, all videoed. Didn't go anywhere. Now, every video piece he's been in and every contest he's ridden in, that's what he's been riding ever since, but you couldn't buy it.
Yeah.
It was unobtainable. You couldn't even buy it because some business people were in the way, right? So there's no business people.
They
in
didn't
the
want to
way.
pay for the mold.
I built the mold for free because I wanted to make something new happen,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the reality of it.
So now you can buy that board?
I guess they sold out in a couple minutes yesterday.
You can't quite buy it now. But
On the next release, whenever that is.
That's
So
awesome.
this whole time, Nigel's been riding your board that you designed for him, and that's it.
Yeah, but he's also ridden my board since he was a little kid.
A child.
Right.
Yeah.
Like ever since he was 8, and his whole life growing up, I just gave him the right size board. When he was really little, they had a skate park up in Davis, and people would always give him boards. And his dad's like, he skates bad on all these boards people
Right.
give him. It's like, and we're talking Sodies and Cover Boys and the works. It's like,
Sure.
he's not even 4 feet tall.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's disproportionate. These boards are thinner, lighter, and his dad's like, okay, that's it. He's just going to ride these. And I monitored his height all the way through his career, and he'd never picked his board. I just picked it for him, and in between Ryan DeWitt, the team manager, and his dad, Ademi, we kept him tuned in. And when he rode 13 and a half, he's like, hey, could I have a little wider? Sure. You know, he didn't even have feedback for it then. He just spent his energy expressing his skills. But when you're spending your energy riding a board that's disproportionate to your body, that energy is not obtainable later. It's gone.
Yeah.
So that muscle memory, that brain memory,
Brain memory.
okay. So as your body grows up, having the right size board does that. Now, some people say, "Oh, they should have a full size board from the start because that's what they're going to have to ride." Right? Well,
That doesn't make sense to me.
well, it makes sense for learning how to kick and push
Okay.
because the longer wheelbase is more stable.
There you go.
But the minute you're trying to get into trick mode, but every kid wants to ollie before he can push,
Yeah.
right?
We see it
So
all
it's
the
a
time.
little
Then
hard.
they're
there,
struggling.
you know.
Right.
it's kind of hard though. I kind of like challenge that to a degree.
It's like trying to
because
ollie with a
when I
longboard for
see
them.
when I see someone like Cater, I mean, he started off riding big boards,
Right.
And he continues riding big boards. So he kind of evolved into
He grew
into
into
himself.
Him.
You
Yeah.
know
Oh,
what
he's
I mean?
really good. But he wanted his vision of himself was, I'll be grown up by riding a grown up's board.
right.
And it worked for him. Like everybody,
Not that it
picks-
works for everybody. It worked
right.
for him.
Everybody picks their path,
Right. Yeah.
And if you can't believe in the path you're on, what can you believe in, right?
Totally.
You know, so I applaud anybody that picks their path, even if I disagree with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I believe in individualism, and if you as an individual decided what this is for you, then it is.
Totally.
But imagine how good Cater could have been if he rode a board that was like perfect for him
Oh, if
at
he had
age
the same
12 or
development,
whatever
yeah.
else. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
for
mean,
sure.
me too.
Right, because everybody,
Where were you this whole time? I
but
could have
like
had a whole
on
different
that
career.
on that size list, you know, whether it's Curran or Grant or like the amount of guys I've worked with over the years, but they didn't necessarily take all the steps. But some of them, you know, grew 6 inches in 3 months.
Right.
Right.
But it's
You know,
also-
Elijah was that
Really
one
dictate
he
that.
never really did that. Where like Grant Taylor, but whoop,
Right.
you know.
One day, do you eventually see your brain just being an app for people to like download what size they are, whatever else, and then just your app spits out the perfect board for them and manufactures it? Like, is that day possible?
I don't know. I don't know. It would take a lot, and it would without any interaction, it's hard to have that. Again, my thing is not saying this is right for you. It's seeing a result and adjusting, right?
It would
And I
work to a
can't-
certain
And I
extent.
can't do that for everybody.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I know you guys hit me up on Instagram like, hey, Professor, I want to come in the workshop and get tuned up. And
Right.
my energy is being spent on the people that I work with in the industry that I build boards for, or the riders that I have a relationship with.
Exactly,
You know?
right.
And that's where it's at. And I already work too many hours a day anyway. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard. I can't. So is there an app? You know, in my mind,
There could be one day.
My factory has a system. I can take the serial number for anything I built in the last
Yeah.
18, 19 years, put that number in and make the same thing.
No, but I mean, like, take that serial number and put it to someone's size,
Weight.
their height, their weight, and everything
Yeah.
else, and
Shoe
like figure out what
size.
works for them.
I'm sure.
You know,
Well, I found that height is really what does it the most.
Oh, okay.
Not
okay.
shoe size and weight.
Right. But I'm sure you could spit out a rounded number to something like that.
Yeah.
If you're like, okay, he's 145,
These
he's
boards
6
might work
foot
for you.
tall, he's this, that, whatever.
So in general, if you look at skaters, they range from 3 feet tall to 6.5 feet tall, right?
Right.
But you go to the skate shop and everything, 80% of it is 14 and a quarter or 14 and a half inch wheelbase. It's disproportionate, right? Tall guys are riding boards that are too short, but they've conditioned themselves for that their whole life, so they can't even uncondition it now. You know,
but someone who's like, I want to ride like downhill or vert, whatever, and want to have a more stable board, but they could be short. They might want to have a wider wheelbase, but if it's like they want to do flip tricks or whatever else, they might need something smaller.
Well, in general, if the industry focused on the wheelbase more, that would become more understanding. But the salesman number is what happens.
Yeah.
So if the salesman number in the catalog says the aerial dimension versus the surface dimension.
I'm saying remove the salespeople. I'm saying basically like have the customer basically plug in their height, their weight, how long their legs are, and it gives you like what could be best for that person.
Right.
Whether they want to do flip tricks or whatever else, like create an app to
So
basically.
is there an app developer out there? Maybe we could talk for a couple hours.
Because I think there's
who knows?
There's something there.
Yeah, well, no, there's something there for sure. You know, the amount of people that I've guided through from that context. You know, and it's also those that are willing to listen or try or whatever. Some aren't. Some are just locked off, or some don't need it. They're already on such a path.
Right.
You know?
I mean, they have apps now. You put your phone on the ground and it measures your whole body for like suits and stuff like that.
wow.
So it's incredible what they have.
Yeah, it's intense what's going on. There's no doubt about it.
We'll make that app for you, man.
Yeah.
Take that.
Let's start working on that.
Yeah, we'll start working on that. No, it's fascinating stuff, dude. I love it, man. And I love talking to you, and thank you for the boards.
Yeah, no problem.
Anything else that we could get that maybe there's a burning question out there that you get all the time that
people ask about the serial number. So the PS6 serial number, the way this works. So as I said, brands make their own choice. Some don't want to talk about where it's made. You know, some may make somewhere else for this part of the world because they can't meet the price point necessary for that part of the world from my factory. Right?
Okay.
That's the hard reality of business. Business is not easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my God.
But here, this one's handcrafted by #PS6 serial number. So this has a PS75741. So that's a batch number.
Okay.
And this says 001. That's the first board in the batch.
This is 002.
Okay.
Yeah, this is number 3 right here.
3.
Yeah.
If you looked at one that was like PS25, it might be from 2004. Okay. If you looked at one that said PS65, it might be last year. Right. Okay. So like for one that's different. So this is 75741. So grab your little pedestal there and read the number off.
0641.
Now you're 773.
Oh, 73969.
So this is 75. You know, so it's couple thousand away already. Right. Like that's how quick the numbers as designs get added in the system.
Yeah.
You know? But then the number doesn't dictate where the board was in the stack or where it was in the batch. No. But what happens is this number is here because this is how we control it at the factory.
Right.
It's the process control.
It's more of a number for you.
Right. It's a number for me and my staff. And then people are like, hey, well, give me a website to tell what that number is. Well, that's the hard thing unless the brand wants to do that and then building a data interface for that and then the brand wanting to do that.
Right.
You know, like I respect the brands and their position.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Interesting. So the PS 75741-004. So if they were making thousands of these boards, it would the count would keep going up with that same number.
Right. But the market, even though the market's gotten strong, we're not making thousands of anything except for we made a lot of that board.
If I'm not mistaken, there was like 3,000 of those things.
Yeah. Literally, I haven't made one graphic, that many boards, and since probably the BAM era.
There you go.
Wow.
Damn.
There you go.
That's a nice royalty check right there, Dubs.
That was nice for a few months.
Keep them going.
Can't wait for my dub.
Hey, you know what? They'll keep selling it. They're still on the website.
Amazing. So that's the number on there. You don't have, it's more of a number for you. It's
Right.
not for
It's
the
really
consumer.
Our process control. But our customers, like, or the pro riders that get to understand my system are like, oh, I saw so-and-so's board. I checked the number. So if you rode one of my boards or your buddy rode it and you're done with it, you take a utility knife and you cut in between the 4 holes and you peel that little piece of grip tape up.
Right.
Here's the number.
And so that number coincides with what? Like where it was like, oh, my board was made
With that
before your
number-
board.
Right. Just chronological order went in the system. Okay. The chronological order.
Right.
But the reality is, for me, I can tell the mold, how
Yeah.
it was drilled, centered, shifted. I can tell the color orientation layup. That means it's
What's
the
that little
nose.
hole right there?
That's just a little prong that says it's the nose.
Oh,
So when they-
little snake bite.
Right. So when
Little
they
snake
shape it, the laser number's not on it yet. And to make sure they never get confused, the prong goes on the nose.
That's smart. Yeah.
Little snake bite. Okay,
Yeah.
I always wondered what that was.
Yeah, and you can see it's by hand. It's not consistent. It's
just
very
it's just a
inconsistent, you know?
When you press the boards, how do you keep them centered? Like, do you have like the little dimples?
So there's dimples in the corner that when we press the board, there's pins that put a pin mark into the blank. And then on my laser machine, on my drill machine, I have laser lights, and you adjust it up to the laser.
And the blank should fall directly into those dimples.
Follows right into the dimple, and then the drill machine drills it. Nice. And then because it's a computer controlled machine, it can say, oh, we want to shift it forward a quarter, or we want to drill it center, or wait, I want to go back a quarter. Done that for some guys. Go back a quarter.
Okay, so you can do like multiple things with one concave and give them like
Right.
2 fingers of
Okay.
Right.
flat or
like, hey, the
2.5.
tail's working good. Some guys are like, I've done some lately at 13 3/4, shifted back.
So you can go
because they're
center
like,
drilled or
my
like
tail
forward
works
drilled.
right here and my nose works right here.
Right.
The nose doesn't have that taller look. Where like Nigel's board has a longer nose, but it hits at the same number off the nose and the tail.
Interesting.
Where when you have a board that's truly symmetrical, you don't get that, right? So it was adjusted to that. And then it has a little bit less concave. In general, the more your skill builds up, the less power you need because you have the power in your muscle and your body and your brain memory.
Brain memory. Yes.
Right?
That whole thing
And
messed
that
me up.
perspective, you know?
Muscle memory. No, I love it, man. I love it. It's so fascinating. Snake bite.
Yeah, I can't wait to skate one of these boards.
I'm very fortunate because
I'm
the reality
definitely
is my whole life has been formed by the people I interact with, right? You know, I've got to interact with a lot of great skaters,
my God.
a lot of great artists, a lot of great brands.
Yeah.
You know, I literally would be nobody without you guys, you know? And ultimately, it takes then the consumer that appreciates that buys that product. Because if nobody bought it, we'd be out of business.
I mean, listen, you've had a rich history in skateboarding, and like I said, if you haven't seen his episode, go back and watch Professor Schmitt's 9 Club because it was fascinating. Yeah, so good, so good.
And thank you for all the work that you've done for skateboarding.
Yeah.
Hell
man.
yeah.
Oh, it's been a joy. I feel lucky that I got away with it. That's let me tell you. You know, as a kid, like, oh, I could do this as a job. Is this possible?
Yeah.
You know,
That's
it's like,
wild. Yeah.
You know, from
the
that
best feeling.
perspective, you know, and then seeing the amount of people in my lifetime who have made a career of it, right? You know, and it's like, you know, seeing what's going on with the Olympics this month, right?
I mean, we're all lucky to
that's,
be
That's
here.
amazing. You know, if I would have thought us building backyard ramps and having a contest in John Grigley's backyard would mean eventually we get to the Olympics.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So crazy.
I mean, it was cool. We had all the pro skateboarders in the world of skateboarding to St. Petersburg, Florida, in the alley. Tony Hawk won, got $50. It was fabulous.
Amazing.
It barely covers like plane ticket home.
I know, right?
Well, I already came for the Kona contest,
Yeah.
so this was the side contest.
He was already out there.
But 6 months later, everybody came.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, there's the best ramp in the world in this alley over here.
It's been run away for 6 months over here.
Yeah, word of mouth, especially at that time. It's just like, we need to go there for sure.
I know, huh?
So the Olympic thing coming up is amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
obviously some people are like, skateboarding's selling out or
There's
whatever.
always
It's like
people like that.
you can jump a fence, barge an alley, whatever you want. Like it doesn't matter.
Nothing's going to change for
Nothing's gonna
anybody.
change.
Yeah.
It's
You
going to
know.
be like there's going to be more kids skating in the street. Well, you
Right.
look at what COVID did here for skateboarding,
Yeah.
right? Like the business boost is like, Kids had to be outside and active. Well, the driveway that couldn't go much further, and skateboard was the best place for that, right?
Huge.
Dad and Uncle Joe, they're like, yeah, we used to skateboard.
Right.
They weren't working for 3 months. They started skating, built a box. And
Oh, we
quarter
hear it all the
pipe.
time, man. We hear it all the time.
Yeah, man.
They're
Dude,
out
the
collecting boards and having a blast, right? The diversity of skateboarding is better. It's like whether it's Andy Anderson and his creative bowl skating, and he's going to the Olympics, right?
Right.
Or the fact that he's a freestyle skater,
Yeah.
right? There's downhill, there's bowl, there's skate park, there's slalom,
Oh yeah,
So many different forms.
The diversity of skateboarding is amazing.
I wish slalom was in the Olympics.
that would be incredible.
Yeah.
Steve Olson going down. The
I would love to
Olympics.
see slalom, high jump, and downhill.
Yeah.
I think it'd be
Warp
awesome
back
to
jump?
have it in there.
Hippie
Warp back
jumping?
in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do the hippie
It'd be
jump.
so good.
I wouldn't watch that one.
But the funny thing is, like, all those people that like hate on the Olympics, whatever, guaranteed if they saw like Yuto on a Slurpee, they're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy a Slurpee because Yuto's on there."
It's going to be interesting to see. You've seen some media come out with people
Right.
this last week. And
Yeah.
there was a great piece I saw on Instagram with Tony Hawk, just about it all starts with a push.
Sure,
And the
sure.
push is the magic of skateboarding, right? You're rolling. You feel vibration through your feet, air on your face.
Yeah.
You decide what you ride, short, long, plastic, popsicle, old school, whatever, right? You decided where you're at.
Yeah.
You decide who you're with, right? It's like the ultimate freedom.
Oh
It's
yeah,
the best.
It's the ultimate freedom,
1000%.
Anyway, Professor Schmitt, dude, thank you
Man.
so much for stopping by and chatting with us.
All right.
Thank you for the boards.
Yeah, thank you for the
Thank you
boards,
for
the
that.
rails, the
Yeah.
the knowledge.
measuring stick. I will take
Yeah.
that home. I'll let you know. How
So
that
you got to come up with a science question. Or
9 inches.
Science question validated by math to give a couple of those away to your listeners.
There you
Well,
go.
what we'll do too is the next time you come back, maybe we'll peruse all the comments that we get in the YouTube descriptions and the YouTube videos, and maybe we'll put together kind of like
A question list.
kind of like a user Q.
We should get Paul in the green room one day.
That'd be amazing.
Oh yeah,
too.
that would
Yeah.
be cool
Yeah.
too.
We have
That way you
a
can answer the questions right then and there.
we have a green room here. We call it the green room, but it's just all it's all live.
Okay.
So we get in there and we have chats going, and you're actually just conversing with. You're reading the chat that they're typing in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That would be super interesting.
it's really
Yeah.
cool. It's
Yeah.
really cool. People love to just ask questions. So the chat's basically,
It's like one-on-one.
feeding you
Right.
questions
Yeah.
and stuff.
interaction right then,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
then and
Live
there.
and happening.
It's
Yeah.
pretty sick.
But we'll maybe next time you're on, we'll get some questions together from the community.
We
that'd be
should
great.
get questions together and go down to his factory.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, we
And
need to go
that would
down
be
there.
amazing.
At every stop of the factory tour, whatever we do, you can pull up a question for that
Oh, there you
certain
go.
thing.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both factory tour and
Q&A.
Q&A
New segment on site.
on site. Man, yeah. Whatever we could do to get out of here.
You're so happy to be back. I thought you were happy to be back.
We
right?
are stoked. We're stoked, but I'm
out
still
already?
sitting in this damn chair.
Yeah.
Man. No, it's
He wants to go skate.
I know. Dude, Professor Schmitt, dude, thank you so
Yes,
much for
dude.
stopping, dude. I would
So rad.
love it. Come back anytime.
All right.
Please. You're our favorite guest. Don't tell
Definitely,
anybody
bro.
else I told you that. Man. Paul Schmitt, everybody, huh?
Yes,
All right. Thanks,
dude.
guys.